Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Let's get after it today. Big game tonight, Jets and the Montreal Canadiens, and we are all over it. Our guy Moe Khan of Montreal will join us in a few minutes. We'll find out the latest on the suddenly surging Habs after one of the worst seasons in franchise history. Actually won 5 in a row coming into tonight. We'll find out what Marty St. Louis done after getting behind the bench, and we'll find out the Montreal side of things for this, of course, game first meeting since the playoff series last week. A lot of talk about Mark Scheifele today for obvious reasons. He spoke earlier. We'll hear from 55 heading into his first game against Jake Evans and the Montreal Canadiens since the incident in game 1 last year that cost him the rest of the playoffs in the opening game of this season. And Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun will join us to get a little bit more on the home team as they kick off a massive 4-game homestand, still clinging to very faint playoff hopes, but coming off a big win against the Arizona Coyotes to finish off their last road trip. Going to be a great show. A big shout out and thanks to all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, Culligan Water, Vita Health, F Apparel, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course, our betting partners over at Coolbet Canada. Lots going on today in in around the Winnipeg Jets and going into this game tonight. Let's get Michael Remis in here to kick things off. Remo, how are you today? What's going on? Have I missed anything?
Anything happening today outside of the fact that we have a hockey game tonight? Montreal, Winnipeg, first time they're playing since the playoffs last season. I don't know if you remember that series. Mark Scheifele being asked a lot of questions. We'll have clips of that. But also, you mentioned the Jets and Montreal being on a heater. I was shocked at, I know we're going to get to the lines later, but I'll bring it up now. The Jets are like heavily favored tonight against Montreal, which the way the Jets have played lately and the way Montreal has played lately was a surprise. Dom had the Jets 70% chance to win. Coolbet has the Jets minus 204, which seems high. It seems very high. So the odds makers still liking the Jets.
Hopefully the odds makers are right. The Jets need this hockey game. There is absolutely no way around it. They had to get 2 against the Arizona Coyotes. They got to get 2 tonight against the Habs. And they sure as hell need 2 points against the Dallas Stars, who they're chasing coming up on Friday night. And, this is an interesting homestand. Mark Scheifele, we'll hear from Scheifele coming up in a few minutes. He did mention they've got 2 days off after this game today. So really, you have to leave it all out on the ice. And listen, the entire season has been marred with underwhelming performances, especially at home in early week Monday and Tuesday games. The Jets just simply cannot fall back into that trap. And I guess, Remo, you got to hope that, they can play with some of that desperation that they manufactured in the third period of the game against Arizona, which I think you could really argue that their season was on the line. It's a similar situation coming into tonight, although they don't find themselves down 1 after 40 minutes. They can come out, get a great start. But to me, speaking of the start, the big story about tonight's game, outside of what will happen within the 60 minutes, is going to be what happens at the beginning of the game. And that, of course, is the Husli Ukrainian Men's Choir doing both the Canadian national anthem and the Ukrainian national anthem. Very well done. I wasn't sure whether that was going to be the case. Very happy that it is. And I have no doubt that that is going to be one of the most powerful moments we will have in a long time in our building. And I certainly encourage people to get there early. And if you haven't been to a game for a while, you're thinking about a game, maybe this is the one to get out to. A great matchup against an Original Six rival, playoff rematch. But most importantly, I think the highlight of this game, hopefully the game will have a lot of highlights too, but make no mistake about it. I think what we'll be seeing on the news and on sports reports and on social media, probably around the world, is going to be one of the most powerful anthem renditions I think we've ever seen tonight.
Yeah, the Husli anthem on a regular game day is always very well done. And
one of the best I've
powerful.
Ever seen in my life.
Yes. So, doing the Canadian and the Ukrainian anthem, everyone standing with Ukraine. We've seen, Russia removed from a number of international sporting events. So, I think it's going to be emotional for sure when they get, do sing it tonight at Canada Life Center.
Yeah. So, as I said, folks, I know they're opening the doors a little earlier today, and I don't know. I mean, someone was saying that there might be some traffic disruptions by whatever, some people that have a bone to pick with the current rules going forward with the arena. So whatever you do, make sure you get downtown early, get into the rink early, and be there for the anthems. It'll be a special moment tonight. Remo, as far as this game goes, I mean, I sort of laid it out. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets simply have to have it. They did get some good news today in that Andrew Kopp is back in the lineup. I said it yesterday. I was hoping that I'd see a announcement from the Winnipeg Jets PR that David Gustafsson has been recalled. I still don't understand why we don't have him in the lineup right now. I mean, I think he'd be a significant improvement over a number of players in the bottom six and would bring more to the lineup. That is not the case, but getting caught back with Adam Lowry, I think would be positive. And Lowry's been playing his ass off lately and has actually been, getting a little bit of puck luck too with some goals finding the net. So, you hope you can have the top two lines going the way they were in the last game, but a big boost to the bottom six and a number of the special teams unit with Kopp coming back into the lineup.
Yeah, let me just pull up the lines here. And that was the big news, Andrew Kopp. He had a concussion, and he talked about how the last one he had, he felt like he came back too early and had to miss additional time. And I think with head injuries, you want to be careful more than anything. So here are the lines. We've been talking about these, and I agree with you. Lowry, we were dogging on him, saying he wasn't contributing offensively. He got half his goal total in the last week. So 3 goals. I mean, that's pretty impressive for a team that we've said didn't have secondary scoring. He's definitely been pulling his fair share. We got Stastny, Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor Dubois, Svechnikov, Kopp, Lowry, Poganski, Harkins, Toninato, Vesalainen, Morrissey, DeMello, Dylan Pionk, Beaulieu, and Schmidt. And Beaulieu, as you said, had the leader speech there in the intermission of last game and had chipped in with 2 assists. He's rewarded. I don't know if they're showcasing him for a trade or what, but Logan Stanley, he's a healthy scratch. And we did have some other. People always ask about the injury notes, Hustler. Nikolai Ehlers, Murad tweeted that Lowry said he is closer to returning, but no timeline. Did skate in a non-contact jersey. And Cole Perfetti, people are asking about him. Dave Lowry said he is a ways away from skating, so it seems like he's even further down the road.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I think we sort of knew that, the way Perfetti left the game and the status that we got, coming out of that game, I guess that was against the Kraken, if I'm not mistaken, made it a little unlikely that we'd see him anytime soon. But I mean, the great news is that Nikolai Ehlers is back skating and practicing with the team, although still in that non-contact jersey. So it could be a while. The bottom line for Winnipeg is, I mean, it'll be nice when some of those guys are able to come back and hopefully they can contribute. Certainly Ehlers will be a huge boost to the team, but I mean, they can't sit around waiting for that to happen. I mean, this is, another chance for the Winnipeg Jets to make up for some lost ground earlier this season. And it's completely imperative. I mean, we sort of rolled out, Remis, the 30 games left in the season. And, they needed to be about 13 games above 500 through those games. Which basically, comes out to 20 wins, 7 losses, and 3 OTLs. You've got some very difficult games against the likes of Tampa Bay coming up, the New York Rangers, Colorado, a couple more times on the schedule. So, listen, if you can't beat Montreal, you're probably not going to be in the conversation either way. But that being said, as we'll talk to Mo, I mean, this Montreal team, after the coaching change with Marty St. Louis coming in, has really sort of turned a corner. And it seems like the young players are playing with a little bit more confidence. I'll be fascinated to see what this Habs team looks like. That was 8-33 before their recent 5-game winning streak. But as I said, for the Winnipeg Jets, it can't be about the opponent. It has to be about themselves. And it would be good if they didn't find themselves trailing going into the third period. A nice solid start coming off what will be a very emotional beginning to the team, to the building, the entire event tonight. And the bottom line is it's about 2 points, and a lot of the other things we'll be talking about, the nonsense, retribution, a code alert, whatever. It's all secondary. It's about getting a win tonight for Winnipeg.
And I will say, when I saw the Jets were heavy favorites, immediate concern. We've just seen, when they're big favorites at home on an early weekday game. I believe the Buffalo game was it not a Tuesday, or the Arizona game as well, early week game. So, but that's in the past. You need to get wins. You're playing against a Montreal team who hasn't been very good on the season, but lately they've been hot. Cole Caulfield back in the league, and he's on a tear right now with Suzuki and Anderson. And of course, I think Matthew Perreault is going to be in the lineup. He spoke to the media. Mo will give us a better rundown very shortly on that. So pretty, again, big game for the Jets. An opponent you'd like to think they could beat. However, on the season, when they're big favorites against opponents you think they should beat, they haven't come out with the W's. So fingers crossed here.
Yeah, let's just take a quick look at these Habs lines, and we'll talk about it more with Mo. But Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Josh Anderson, that top line. I mean, you got Mike Hoffman, Laurent Dauphin, and Brendan Gallagher. Jake Evans with Rem Pitlick and Arturi Letkinen. Ryan Poehling with Pizzetta, and our old buddy Frenchie himself, Matthew Perreault, who's back, did speak before the game. And in addition to all the other things happening around this game tonight, Remo, I know there's going to be a very, very long, warm ovation for a real fan favorite that spent the majority of his career in the National Hockey League in Winnipeg, playing for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, it's funny. I still think of him as Washington Capital. He was on some great Capitals team, or remember him on the Hershey Bears in the AHL. But yes, he spent 7 years with the Jets, 455 games, 230 points. He was Rick. I said yesterday, Rick Ralph called him the human jumper cables. You could put him on any line and he would jumpstart them. Played on the power play. Sometimes battled injuries, but you knew that he always played hard. One thing, when I was working social media for the NHL a couple seasons, I always would capture goal reactions, and I will say nobody celebrated goals like Matthew Perreault, and famously scored 4 of them, and in one game couldn't quite get the 5th.
Gail McDonald.
For $1 million. Yes,
sorry, Gail.
Gail McDonald, but yeah, that's I think Matthew Perreault. So also great hair. I mean, great headshots. I mean, he could do the short Freddie Mercury look or the long hair. I mean, big Matthew Perreault guy here.
I'm glad you brought that up. In the annals of Jets 2.0, there is absolutely nobody that dominated picture day like Matthew Perreault.
I'll go to Hockey DB real quick. We can pull up Matthew Perreault because, he always looked pretty, had a good look.
Isn't there a feature where you can check the different headshots for it? So here's a nice little life hack for you. And folks, if you're watching if you're listening on the podcast, if you do go to Hockey DB, there is a technique which Michael Remis is displaying for us here, where you can click on that.
This one is good.
This one might be the best. Anyway,
no, this one was the best. This one was the best.
Just incredible headshots of Perreault every single year. It was something new. It was something wonderful, and I know, again, he started off the man bun. I mean, he was man bunning it before every hipster co-opted this. In a lot of ways, Matthew Perreault, from the beard, the hair, the man bun, he was somewhat of a trendsetter. And then when everyone else started doing it, he went to a new look.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same hairstyle like from year to year. It's crazy. Like you look at, mine, and I probably have the same one going back like 20, 30 years. So good for him, always keeping it fresh. So this is a great feature on
Rob Mahoney and David D said Tana really ramped up his picture day work after leaving the Winnipeg Jets as well. Buff always had some interesting ones. There was a few good, but the bottom line is Matthew Perreault, year in and year out, always had the most hilarious looks when it came to it. And aside from his hair, was a heck of a player. And I'll say this, we spent a lot of time talking about what's seemingly missing from the Winnipeg Jets this year. Well, more often than not, it seemed that real passion, when it comes to the game, not necessarily amongst all players, but some that, have been legitimately questioned. The one thing that Matthew Pro brought to the rink pretty much each and every night was a real passion for the game. And, I think his absence is really felt both on the ice and I think amongst the group, Reem.
I liked, Pro always gave honest answers in the media as well, but I think he left the team and didn't really do any media on closing locker day last year. So I don't know what, if there was an exit that he wasn't happy about or whatever happened, but he was one of the leaders in the room. It's 7 years he was here. So if Matthew Pro was going into a Hall of Fame, he would be wearing a Jets cap. I guess he spent the most time here. He was one of the first big free agents, 2014-15. Played in a playoff series, but I still think of him as a Capital, but obviously I'm wrong. But again, I always say it seems like yesterday.
I think of him as a Hershey Bear.
Yeah.
Going up against the Moose back in the old days in the American Hockey League. And at that point, we knew that this guy was a player. I mean, of course, he went to Anaheim and to Washington, but, really became, an established regular NHLer that played all over the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets and, was a real fan favorite. So another reason why you might want to grab some tickets and head to the game tonight is the fact that, will certainly be an opportunity to welcome Matthew Perreault back to Winnipeg. We will we're going to listen to Mark Scheifele's comments, but we'll do that in a few minutes after we talk to Moe Khan. We'll also hear from head coach Dave Lowry, and Scott Billeck's going to join us on a number of topics. Shout out to the chat. I was afraid that the chat might be an absolute tire fire today, but so far it's been great. Really appreciate everyone with us today on YouTube. And again, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and like the episode. Hit that thumbs up as well. But right now we're going to get to Moe Khan in just a second. Big shout out to our friends over at F Apparel. I told yesterday Remis was in there on the weekend getting suited up for a couple of custom-made suits. Of course, F Apparel, a Winnipeg-owned company with a full line of custom clothing for any occasion, including suits, dress shirts, winter jackets, golf pants, chinos, untucked dress shirts, shoes, ties, accessories, and so much more. Every guy needs at least one suit that fits and looks great. Remis got two, as a matter of fact. I will be doing the same very soon. And no better place to do it than F Apparel. Some of the great looks you see from Winnipeg Jet players going in are, of course, from F Apparel. And the bottom line is their custom suits start at just $400. If you've got a wedding party that is looking to get suited up for the upcoming summer, make sure you talk to Andrew and the guys over at F. You get a 15% discount when your wedding party buys for the group from F Apparel, and a great promotion for high school graduates as well. If you bring in your valid high school ID before your grad, you'll get a free shirt and tie along with your suit. So basically, you can get a suit, shirt, tie starting at just $400. F Apparel, they're at 190 Smith Street downtown, or visit them online at that's EPHapparel.com. Vita Health Fresh Market, they had that big customer appreciation day last Friday. But 24/7, 365, they have the greatest prices on Winnipeg's best selection of natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. And if you can't make it into the store, as I was mentioning 24/7, you can visit their brand new fully shoppable website to buy online or schedule a delivery with Instacart. But if you are popping by, make sure to check out their amazingly delicious lunch options, healthy Vita Market salads, soups, sandwiches, and more. And you can join the exclusive Vita VIP list by texting Vita VIP to 1-877-630-1970 to receive special offers all year long and be entered to win a $100 Vita Health gift card. 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. It's Vita Health Fresh Market, and they are online at myvita.ca. And of course, while we're talking about the all the good stuff at Vita Health, I mean, we know when it comes to health and just living, it all starts with water and hydration. Kenny's water bottle will agree. I know he's in chat right now. Culligan Water have been the go-to people for all things water-related for 65 years here in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. Family-owned, locally owned, and they've got it all. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, and whole home systems, drinking water systems, not to mention citywide delivery services. and commercial and industrial water products and solutions as well. Give the Culligan man a call, 204-694-5180. You can visit them in person at 1200 Sargent Avenue or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. All right, looking forward to our next chat. Scott Billeck coming up a little bit later on in the program. Listen, we always enjoy our conversations with our next guest, but with the Habs coming to town for the first time since the playoffs, you knew we had to have a return visit from our guy, Moe Khan, one of the best dressed guests consistently on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And we knew he'd be rocking something, supporting our Canadian men's national team as we get closer to the World Cup. What's up, dude?
And women's national team as well, Andrew.
Absolutely.
Both powerhouses right now in the World Wide Web here. So it's been awesome to see those two teams. I'm well, Andrew. By the way, you're going to have to make it 3. I need a suit myself for my buddy Jeremy's wedding in June here. So I'm going to have to come out to Winnipeg for that suit, my friend.
You know what? We can make that happen. We can make that happen, Mo. Maybe we'll get some Canadian soccer things on the inside of it. Some nice looks. Let's just get to it right now. I mean, before we talk about all the backstory and, what we think might or might not happen tonight, if you can describe what it has been like following and covering this hockey team throughout this miserable season, and then this sudden turnaround, a little bit of a hot streak with 5 straight wins. What the heck is going on? And what's Marty St. Louis up to on behind the bench?
It's disaster with this win streak for Hat fans, right? They want to tank this all here, Andrew. They want to know that if we can tank this season and get ourselves at least a top 2 pick and maybe a chance of Shane Wright at number 1, they're all in. But Marty St. Louis brought in a different vibe to this locker room. And Jeff Petrie kind of had a backhanded compliment towards Dom Ducharme, the former head coach, where he said, it's a lot more fun now than where it was, say, 2-3 months ago. And Jeff Petrie has not been the beacon of hope here because of his play on the ice, but now he's been playing much better of late. And on this 5-game winning streak, we're seeing a lot more dynamism, a lot more cutting edge, where St. Louis is not kind of handcuffed these guys, where they're able to go out there, make their mistakes, and learn from those mistakes. And I think from that perspective, right, and who knows where Marty St. Louis will be after the year if he takes his job on a full-time basis. But he's that former player, Andrew, that understands the angles, the pressure points on the ice if you make a mistake or you make a big play. And I think he's able to connect a lot more easier with the younger players on this roster than Dom Ducharme did when he was the head coach of this franchise.
Yeah. What was your reaction when Marty got the job? And that to me, that was completely out of left field. I mean, wasn't he coaching Pee-wees or something at the time?
Yeah, my reaction was, what the bleep? That was my reaction because it was trickling, because for a 2-day window prior to the official announcement, it was leaking out from various sources and media outlets that St. Louis is on the radar because of his rapport with Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton when he brought him into the Rangers back in 2013, 2014. So there was that talk. And when he was brought in and he had his first press conference, it was a sense of relief, fresh air, to reinvigorate this team. And he saw Cole Caulfield being the biggest benefactor of the whole process because he went on a blistering streak of goals in the next 2-3 games after that. And I think that's where they want to see is those foundation pieces, the Nick Suzukis, the Cole Caulfields, the Romanovs. These guys grow and grow and grow. And I think now moving towards the deadline, which is now less than 3 weeks from today, they're going to make some moves. I think they know that. Whether they get rid of Yoel Armia, Arturi Lehkonen, Jeff Petrie, I think Gallagher and Carey Price are 2 names that might be more towards the back burner of maybe next year. They might be on the block. But I think for Kent Hughes, for Jeff Gorton, they know that they're in a position that they can get some valuable picks in return. But in the same time here, if they're able to put down some success, which they have with this winning streak, it kind of creates a new kumbaya going towards the off year, which, again, as I told you last time on the show, these next 3-4 months will be a seminal moment in this administration to get things right with their draft pick selections and who they sign and trade for in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen before young players that have great starts to their career, that then, suffer a little bit of a sophomore slump. And certainly that seemed like that was the case with Cole Caulfield. But even more difficult when so much pressure is on the shoulder of a young player. And, with the way everything bottomed out so early on the Montreal Canadiens this season, essentially a lost season 2 months in. It's been fascinating to see the turnaround of Marty St. Louis, and I'd imagine people right now are thinking that maybe this isn't just a stopgap to get them to the end of the season. This could be a guy that could potentially be there long term. I mean, he's getting results on a team that certainly talent-wise, with who's in the lineup each and every night, probably on paper isn't going to win very many hockey games.
Yeah, for St. Louis, if he's going to take this job on a full-time basis, it's got to be on his terms. What I mean by that is his family going to be okay with him being in the hopper of Montreal for hockey? We know how it is, Andrew. You know very well in Winnipeg how intense it can be with the medium fan bases if things go awry. And I think now for Kent Hughes, I mean, this is a platform to kind of sell this to St. Louis that, hey, if you want to be the guy, we got some pieces in place here. Our draft board right now, our farm system is going to be plush of prospects in the next 2-3 years. But I think, again, for this franchise, for where they want to be, fans are slowly coming to grips here, Andrew, that, hey, it is now time to do a rebuild with this franchise. They're not going to the Cup anytime soon, whether it's next year, 2 years, or 3 years down the road. But if you look at it from a 5 to 6 year window, if these young guys continue to physically mature and mentally mature, most importantly, they could be in that perennial discussion of being a Cup contender down the road. But if Marty St. Louis does not see that, he might just ride off into the sunset and put Kent Hughes at square one again to figure out who can he hire to be the franchise head coach for the next, who knows, 3, 4, 5 years for that matter.
What's the latest on Carey Price?
There's nothing. Andrew, I've been saying this for months, right? Like, when I covered in the locker room before COVID, the over-under, as I told you before, would be 20 words from 10 questions. Over-under that is his response. You'd be like 14 words in total, right? And in the new year, on air on TSN radio, and I said, guys, it's a waste of a practice time here to go talk to him because he's not going to say much. And I think now with the report that came out earlier this week about, hey, he's still in rehab, he's still trying to get himself back onto the ice here, it's going to be the same thing for Carey Price until the foreseeable future. Because, look, again, for him, for where he's at, I mean, look, he's not going to win a Cup here. There was reports last week saying that he was open to the idea of going to Seattle in the expansion draft that did not materialize because they went in another direction. But I think now for Carey Price moving towards the offseason, he has to assess from the team angle, is this team going to be competitive all next year? Probably not. And for him, if he wants to win a Cup or be in a Cup contending team, this might be the offseason where Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon and Jeff Molson, the team owner, decide, look, it's time to move Carey Price to the right team so he has a chance to win a Cup moving forward.
I mean, I honestly, at this point, am wondering if Carey Price is even tradable. I mean, when you miss an entire season, when you're making $10 million, I mean, there's so many uncertainties when it comes to Price going forward. I mean, the financial commitment, even if you're eating part of it, potentially to have a guy that isn't playing, not the sort of acquisition that general managers really go out on a limb to make.
No, and I think here's the thing, Andrew, with Carey Price, right? We know his tonic is in the playoffs. He's a big game hitter in the playoffs, that he comes up huge, whether it's Team Canada or the Montreal Canadiens, as we witnessed last summer. Now, for a team that might be in need of a goalie, I'm not saying it's Edmonton, because Edmonton's a complete mess in its own way, but let's just fast forward towards next year. I don't think Carey will be traded now because it's not going to happen. It's going to be more in the offseason towards next year. I think there's a sense among those reading the tea leaves in the Montreal media is that they don't think Carey Price will be the Habs goalie come next trade deadline in the winter of 2023, that he will be dealt by then. But now, if you're a team looking at it from an 18-month window, that you have maybe a 2 playoff window of being a competitive team here, you might say next year that, hey, Carey Price's deal isn't too bad at that moment. We can take half the salary. Montreal can take the half the salary, and we can get him up for a stretch run, and he probably will be rusty. But the key thing is, though, you need him for 3 months, April, May, and June. That's where you want him. And I think teams will start fishing for that scenario moving towards the draft in Montreal in early July. And I think by then we might start seeing the wheels be in motion, that maybe a trade could be consummated with Carey Price or the Montreal Canadiens in Team X in the next 12 months or so.
Mo, a big guy in chat wondering, is Price out right now because of physical injury, or is it mental health related, or is there a combination of two? Because I know he was dealing with both.
Yeah, it's a combination of two. But remember back in the October when we had the puck drop, he did enter the substance abuse program for about a month, but also physically. Remember, he had those knee issues after the Cup loss to Tampa, and did some surgery on that, operation on that, and it hasn't really sufficiently healed. And again, it's been very North Korea-like with the Habs on what has been diagnosed for Carey Price's injury, Andrew. So we're still trying to piece it out about what exactly has he gone through in his rehab that has set him back moving towards maybe he comes back this year or next year. So again, a lot of moving parts now with Carey Price. But again, I just think for his value, yes, it's not at a premium, but come next year, if there's a team that's desperate for a goalie, they might look at Carey Price as being that final piece of the puzzle to make a run for a cup.
All right, Moe Khan with us from TSN 690 in Montreal and Winnipeg Sports Talk. Jets and Habs tonight, 7 p.m. Make sure you get there early. The Husley Ukrainian men's choir is going to blow the roof off that place, both the rendition of the Canadian anthem, which is, for my money, the best in the biz, as well as the Ukrainian anthem. And that's going to be a big story, I think, for this game. But Mo, this is the first time that these two teams have met since the playoffs. And of course, that playoff series was a horrible sweep for the Winnipeg Jets at the hands of the Habs. But of course, when everyone thinks about that series, it is about game one, the Mark Scheifele hit, which got him suspended for 4 games and knocked Jake Evans out. Very differing opinions around here as to whether that will be an issue tonight. I mean, will we have a code alert? Will there be retribution? Or with so many different players on the Habs from when this team played just a few months ago, a new head coach, maybe it'll just be something that happened in the past. I mean, how much of a factor do you think what happened in the past with Scheifele will be the case? And will Jake Evans or any members of the Montreal Canadiens be looking for Mark Scheifele to pay the price, if you will, tonight?
I'll give you the example. You watch those Untamed World shows on National Geographic, where the wildebeest goes to the lip of the lake, takes a sip of the water, the crocodile slowly comes up towards that wildebeest and it snatches it into the water. You might have that where the crocodile, being the Habs, might come nearby Scheifele and just kind of give him an eyeball to eyeball and say, look, we can do it now, or maybe the second period or third period, because it left a sour taste in the Montreal Canadiens' mouths on how that played out in game one back in the playoffs of last year, Andrew. There's no question about that. But we know the code of ethics, the dinosaur ethics of the NHL is that, hey, you touch one of our players, we need retribution. And it would not shock me to see something happen tonight, and then that'll be it, and you move on from that point. But I just think now for where these teams have been, and you're absolutely bang on, right? Both have gone in different directions in terms of the internal dissension, not dissension, but going towards not where they want to be as they were last year. But I just think in this situation, as they will be tonight, it will not surprise me to see that happen. But again, I mean, it's been so long. People in Montreal Canadiens land have forgotten about that, but I'm sure we'll have a refresher in the lead up to tonight's game.
Well, you know what? I guess I did want to ask that. I mean, we had sort of, and I remember the comments of George Larac a few months ago that said, March 1st, when these two teams played, it's going to be old school. And I mean, hey, George comes from a unique background of busting a lot of noggins over the time that he was in the National Hockey League.
Oh, yeah.
And Jay Miller and Chad makes a point. Retribution, they waxed us. I mean, the ultimate retribution was a 4-game sweep. And the further humiliation of Scheifele having to miss the opening game because he wasn't able to complete the 4-game suspension during the playoffs. But like on the morning show this morning, when guys were talking about this game, was the name Mark Scheifele mentioned very often? Was this even a topic, or is this something that obviously was going to be brought up in and around here with the first time they've done, but probably not something that was, well, first and foremost amongst Montreal media? And if the Montreal media isn't talking about it, I can't imagine it's a very big story inside the room.
Yeah, I think, look, here's the thing, right? If Mark Scheifele is playing for the Boston Bruins, it's front page. The rivalry, the geography rivalry of Winnipeg and Montreal isn't there because it's two different teams, different divisions, different conferences, right? So there isn't that link that, hey, you play them 5 to 6 times a year. So when you think about Scheifele now, yes, it's going to be at the forefront and the boiling point early on in the matchup. And if and when it does happen, it'll be in the past. But I just think, fans in Montreal, you're right, we're happy to do the 4-game sweep. But again, they just want to showcase that they still have that physical cutting edge to go out there and lay down the law if need be. But the question now is, who will do it in this game tonight? And look, there's a lot of players on this roster who are desperate for jobs, Andrew, because again, this goes beyond what the current core is. There are guys who want to showcase to Kent Hughes and to Jeff Gorton and maybe Marty St. Louis that I deserve to be a part of this team's process going for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So if I have to drop the gloves and kind of lay down the law, I will do it. But again, I just think for tonight, it doesn't have the same momentum. It doesn't have the same bad blood if this is Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Montreal, or Ottawa, Montreal. Winnipeg, Montreal, it's whatever it is. That's how I look at it with the Jets and Habs in terms of the rivalry right now.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think the miserable season that both teams have had up until this point and the amount of time through this year is a factor as well. Like if this game was game 3 of the regular season, when Scheifele was just back in the lineup and everything was fresh, I think there might be a more potential for some fireworks.
Agreed.
But that being said, it would be very interesting. I mean, I don't know a lot about Jake Evans. I mean, he doesn't seem to be a pugilist, as it were. But, I understand. I mean, how do you think Jake Evans in particular reacts to it to tonight? Is this something that he takes into his own hands, or is he just concentrating on playing a good shift every time he goes out there and establishing himself as a regular NHLer for their new head coach?
Well, it's the latter, as you said right now. It's concentration because, conversing with them when he first came up with the Habs, very humble, quiet kid. Two-way player looking to kind of etch his name in the fourth line role, third line role that he's in right now. And I think for him, he's not a physical guy. And look, you can talk to anyone in the locker room. They'll say he's a great team guy, a sound two-way player, kind of takes care of his own end first before going on the attack. And I think in this situation, if this was a different player, maybe a Josh Anderson, for example, then J.A. will go out there to look for retribution. I think there'll be the supporting cast members that he will play with, Jake Evans, that will go out there and take care of business for him. Look, if they do tango with Scheifele and Evans, great. But I don't see him being the guy to initiate that whole tete-a-tete of having that fight happen in the situation. I think someone else on that roster will, because, again, Jake Evans' game isn't to be physical like it is for someone else on that team.
Yeah, and I mean, Scheifele with his one career NHL fight, not quite a pugilist by at all.
It's not going to be the UFC card. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Curtain jerkers, if anything. Moe Khan with us here. Hey, Mo, just quickly staying with the Habs for a minute and looking ahead to the next few weeks. I mean, the season's lost. I mean, they're talking about draft picks right now, and you guys are probably hammering the lottery simulator every day on your programs on 690.
5 times a day. I do it 5 times a day.
Tell us about the chatter around the club heading into the trade deadline. How many players, could be on the move?
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest topic du jour for the next 2.5, 3 weeks leading up to the 21st. That how many guys will be dealt? Again, Jeff Petrie is a guy that Habs fans, I think, have become very, I guess, disenchanted with him, if that's the term to use, because of how he played prior to St. Louis' arrival. I think he's a guy to watch out for because they could get themselves a decent return for him, whether it's from Detroit or Dallas. Arturi Lehkonen, Yoel Armia are 2 guys to watch out for. You look at Ben Sherratt. I know he was a bit banged up the last 10 days. He's a guy that will definitely fetch perhaps a first-round pick, as it was for David Savard when he went from Columbus to Tampa last year. So there are definitely some desirable trade assets that Kent Hughes has. But again, it comes down to this, though. Does he want to trade all of those guys away now to get back maybe a 1, 2, or 3? Or does he hold off and wait till the draft day in July and maybe get more value for it? So I just think right now the Habs are in sell mode. The question of when he will offload these guys here, I think Sherratt will be the guy to watch out for in the early going of March, that once he's healthy and ready to roll in terms of his on-ice ability, there'll be more teams in the queue that will look to trade and offer probably a 1 and maybe a draft pick or able body that can come play for this team right now and towards the future.
Oh, Mo, great stuff today. Hey, let me just get away from this game for a minute tonight. And, I was just on with Dustin Nielsen. We were doing the lock shop. And, we were talking about the Caps. And I watched some of that game last night. And then I was looking at the numbers, and I noticed that Ovi was -4, and Kuznetsov was -4. And it got me thinking about, Russian players right now in the National Hockey League. And Ovechkin, of course, is sort of in a different category. I mean, you look at his Instagram, he's sitting there, with Vladimir Putin on that. And I mean, he's been a central player. But I wonder the effects of what's happening overseas right now. For Russian players right now in the National Hockey League, and we have one here to Getty Svechnikov, and I mean, I don't expect these guys to speak on it, but this is a crazy time in the world right now, especially to be one of those players from that country that are making their money out here in the West. What do you think that this situation is doing to Russian players right now, and how difficult must it be for what they're trying to do day to day just to earn a living?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, look, it's awful what's happening in Ukraine. They don't deserve this at all. We know that, Andrew. Just imagine these Russian athletes, whether it's the NHL, whether it's athletes in North America who are playing in various sports, and NBA included. They're all in the same boat that if they speak up, something might happen to their family in Russia. And you saw what happened to Artemy Panarin, who spoke up against Vladimir Putin in the last year or so, and what happened with the allegations that came about back in the fall, that he had to sit out for a while and get things organized again. And I think now for Alex Ovechkin, and I mentioned this on Twitter, look, he may be very bland in his responses about his alliance with Putin and where he stands with him. But think about it right now, that there could be potential sponsors that have deals with Ovechkin that might pull away their money. And that's where they might feel it from a financial standpoint. And I think Elliot Friedman made a great point on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night during the intermission. He said, look, the U.S. and Canadian governments could deny visas for these athletes from Russia who are playing in North America for their respective sport teams. So this definitely filters beyond the rink, the court, and the pitches. And this could become a political game where a lot of these guys may not be given the visa required to play for their team for that X amount of months that they're here in North America. So this is definitely a stressful situation. And I can only imagine, Andrew, that there are those Russians who are against it, but just don't want to speak up because of the fear or the retribution that could happen to their loved ones in their homeland.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously, the first concern is for everyone in Ukraine right now, but
Absolutely.
I mean, it is an ugly situation for so many people for so many different reasons. Moe Khan with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Man, this has been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this game tonight, and hopefully we can focus in on what's happening on the ice as a bit of a distraction from so many ugly things that are happening around the world. But then, of course, it's the Jets and Habs, and they haven't been distracting very many people from much this year. Maybe giving their fans a little bit more brain damage than any's. Hey, just one more on the Russia question I do want to ask, and especially with the Habs being so focused in on the draft. What do you think this is going to do to Russian draftees? I mean, if you had a player, if you get the number one pick and there's a guy that is, your best player available, but he's Russian, with the situation right now of just getting players over and everything that goes with that, I mean, do you think teams are going to be shying away from players from there?
There could be a slide. I really believe there could be a slide with these Russian players, because now you look at it this way, Andrew. If you're a projected top 5 pick in this year's draft or even next year's draft, you might slide, and this might hurt their value. And that's where I think the squeeze will be felt immensely for NHL eligible players from Russia who are going to go in the draft in the next 12 months, 24 months. And I think now moving towards the summer months here, and you hope this war will end as soon as possible for everyone involved, that maybe they'll kind of release the sanctions on these Russian hockey federations and soccer federations out there. But I think now moving towards this draft, yes, if you're a Russian player, you are nervous because you might be a projected second-round pick. You might go in the 5th round because you may not be allowed. As I made the point before from what Ellie Freeman said on Hockey Night in Canada, you may not granted visa. And we know right now, Andrew, in the professional sports world, you want guys who are ready to go, regardless of your background, whoever you are. And if you can't get that visa, or you're going to be denied to play with our farm team or whatever it is, you definitely drop down by a few more notches in the draft world.
Mo, great stuff. Can't wait to have you back on the program. We'll hit much more than just this Jets-Habs game the next time, but you be well, and we'll talk to you soon here on WST.
3 more weeks left of winter, and CFL less than 3 months, my friend.
That is what I'm talking about. We'll catch up again real soon. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Take care, pal.
One of our favorites at MoCon19. Follow him on Twitter, and if you're ever scanning around the app, you can check out him on TSN 690 in Montreal. All right, we're going to hear from Mark Scheifele in just a moment, and then Scott Billeck is going to join us. Big shout out to our friends over at Manitoba Battery. Man, it's been an ugly winter, but Manitoba Battery has been busy and powering Manitobans through the brutal last couple months and keeping those cars on the road. When it comes to automotive batteries, a locally owned family business, been given the best prices in town. Most automotive batteries begin at just $100 with core exchange, or you can get one delivered to you anywhere in Winnipeg for $115 on the same day if you order by 1:30 p.m. We'll have some fun times talking about what you might be needing batteries for come summer once this snow leaves. But in the meantime, if you're getting out onto the ice, Manitoba Battery also has all the flasher batteries you'll need to keep you catching fish throughout the winter. Pop on down and see Donnie and the gang at 1026 Logan Avenue. You can give them a call at 204-783-8787, or you can catch them online at manitobabattery.com. Our friends at Royal Sports popping in. What's up to Greg? Of course, Royal Sports is the, frankly, the greatest store around. Whether you are playing hockey, a fan of hockey, or pretty much any other sport, Royal Sports has something for you. Incredible merchandise, not just from the home teams, but teams from around the sporting world. But they do have the best selection of Winnipeg Jets merchandise with thousands of exclusives. And of course, we mentioned just a couple weeks ago that shipment of 4 exclusive Winnipeg Blue Bombers back-to-back Grey Cup championship hats. We mentioned the massive hockey department. Snow, lots of snow. Might be time to check out the snowboards over at Royal. Before we know it, we'll be getting into bikes. And of course, all the cool stuff over on the Kings Skate, Snow, and Surf side as well. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sales. And pop down and see them at 750 Pembina Highway. And I'm actually going to the game with Trevor Knott tonight. Of course, T. Knott, our good friend and supporter from day one over at Knott Auto Corp, the place to start any search for a vehicle here in Winnipeg. Whether you're thinking about an SUV, maybe one of the Teslas they've got on site, or a particular make and model that you're searching for, Knott Auto Corp will help you get into it at the best possible price. Why not get a great deal and get the car you're looking for with the help of the Knott team? Pop down and see him at Waverly and McGillivray, or you can find out more online at knott.ca. All right, Scott Billeck coming up in a few minutes, but let's hear from Mark Scheifele. We knew that he would be the center of attention in this game when the Habs and Jets finally met again. Took a few months of the season, but tonight is that night. And Mark Scheifele earlier today was asked about seeing the Montreal Canadiens again, considering what happened in Game 1 of the playoffs. And Mark Scheifele says this is a new team and a new year, and he at least is moving on. Here's 55.
It's been a while. It's a new year. They got a lot of new players. We got a lot of new players. So, you never know. But it's the way I look at it. It's another hockey game. It's another big game for the Winnipeg Jets to try to get some points and move up the standings. So, in my mind, it's just another game.
I feel like you have to be ready though for something. Just the code and all those things that gets talked about. And
what's the code?
Well, answering the bell, I suppose. That's why I'm just wondering if you feel like you have to not have eyes in the back of your head, but just be ready in case somebody does want retribution.
It's a physical game. You always got to play with your head up, and that's the way I try to play the game. I try to play the game with my head up and aware of everyone. Not everyone plays that way, but in my mind, it's just going to be another regular hockey game. Every team's physical. Every team wants to lay the body and be a physical team. So, we know it's just going to be another tough test tonight.
There's Mark Scheifele, his first answer. We got a couple more from 55, and then we'll bring in Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun, who you just heard ask that question. It was no surprise. There was a number of questions on what happened last playoff series. And of course, Mark Scheifele was directly asked if he's challenged, how he'll respond.
Mark, a couple of years back, Wheels took a bad hit from Evgeny Malkin. In the next game they played, Wheels went after Malkin. They fought. And I talked to him in the first intermission, and Malkin said it was a bad hit and Wheels deserved retribution in that situation. Does Jake Evans deserve retribution if that's what they come for tonight?
Yeah, if Jake Evans wants to fight me, I'll answer the bell for sure.
Mark, you mentioned that, you're going to treat it like another game, but because you didn't get to play in that entire series, does this game mean a little bit more to you from that perspective and the fact that you guys need the 2 points desperately?
Honestly, you guys are making a way bigger deal than it is. It's a long time ago. It's a lot of things have happened, to our team, to their team. It's a long time ago. A lot of things have happened. A lot of things have gone through my mind since that point. So, it's in my mind, it's just another game. It's a big time for the Winnipeg Jets to make some moves. We had a big win in Arizona, and we have a big chance tonight. We finally get a couple days off after. We finally get a 2-day break after this game, so we can leave it all on the ice and know we got a little bit of resting time. But it's just another game, but guys.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't say I'm at all surprised of what Mark Scheifele had to say today. I mean, that's certainly what I was expecting it, and I think I'm of the opinion that I think it'll sort of be much ado about nothing, but not at all surprised that it was brought up the way it was. One more clip before we bring Billeck in, and this was sort of at the end, but Mark Scheifele has asked about what's going to be happening with these Who's the Ukrainian Choir tonight, considering what's happening in the world. Check this out.
With what's going on in the outside world, Mark, I'm just wondering, with the Hoosly Choir tonight, for most it's going to be a very emotional evening. Are the players recognizing that as well, what a special moment that's going to be? Or were you even aware of that?
I honestly, I don't read the news very often. I go to my house and I enjoy my life away from the game and my dog and my girlfriend and my family, and I don't spend a lot of time on what's written in the media, to be honest. So I honestly don't know what you're talking about.
The Ukrainian choir singing both anthems tonight. So
oh, okay.
That's all I was asking about.
Okay, yeah, I had no idea. So sorry to have no answer.
Remis, is Mark Scheifele aware that there's a war going on right now between Russia and the Ukraine?
Seemingly no. I mean, he's concentrating on winning hockey games. They have
hockey guy.
He's a strictly hockey guy, so seemingly no. Had no idea. So they're trying to win games. They're out of a playoff spot, Huss.
Hey, it's a big 2 points tonight. So anyways, far more than, a normal regular season game. There's a lot surrounding this game tonight, both with the pregame, as we've been mentioning, which is going to be a very special moment. I encourage you, if you can get to the rink tonight, do it and make sure you're there early. And then a game that may have some other things around it, but the bottom line is this is a desperate hockey team that absolutely needs 2 points. Let's get to it with Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Scotty, welcome back to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Lots going on around this hockey team today.
It's a good day to talk about Winnipeg sports, isn't it? So
holy smokes! What did
where do you want to start, Huss? Where do you want to start?
Where do we want to start? Listen, I'm just going to try and not take the cue from the chat today. I'll say that much. We knew that there'd be a lot of takes. That's for sure. What did you make of the back and forth today, though? I mean, we had sort of fun about Scheifele seeming sort of clueless about everything that's happening in and around the world. Whatever on that. I do know that I think a lot of people, including guys in that dressing room, will be feeling the emotion of what we're expecting at the beginning of the game tonight. But a lot of questions about what happened in the playoffs, and can't say I'm really surprised at what we've heard, certainly from the Winnipeg Jets side. They're looking to move on, and bottom line is they need 2 points tonight, and that has to be the focus.
Yeah, and talking to some of the Montreal media today when we were down there at the morning skate, they actually don't really expect a whole lot either in terms of retribution. They just don't really have anybody to do it. Like, they're and so I threw out, a guy like Josh Anderson, right? And maybe Josh Anderson, steps up, but they're like, no, he doesn't really fight and that sort of thing. And Jake Evans is not a big guy, right? I mean, he would be outside of Mark Scheifele's weight class. So it's one of those things where you probably expect something to still happen, even though it, obviously Mark Scheifele wants to move past it. Obviously the Jets want to move past it. It was a bit of a black eye on the team, right? I mean, it obviously had happened. Mark got suspended for 4 games. The Jets lose, gets swept out of the playoffs. Whether or not that's Mark Scheifele's fault or not is up to interpretation or debate or whatever you want to say. But it didn't look good at the time, right? The hit was brutal, vicious. It obviously resulted in a very devastating injury for Jake Evans too. I imagine Jake Evans wants to look past this too, right? I mean, this game is 52 games in the making. Like they haven't played yet. So, this is also one of those games where it's taken a long time for Mark Scheifele to have to play the Montreal Canadiens again. And, that was part and parcel to, why, he was suspended for 4 games. He never got a chance to play them again in that series because they got swept. But yeah, you get a sense that, I don't know. I asked Mark Scheifele and he kind of like gave me the shoulder shrug on the code and all that. Like he doesn't think it exists and anything. Obviously he knows what the code is. I mean, he was reminded of the Blake Wheeler incident. You played that clip with Evgeny Malkin, Sean Reynolds asked him about that and that sort of thing. And that's what elicited that great quote that if he wants to fight, I'll fight him, right? I mean, that's kind of it, right? So I mean, that's it. I don't think either of those guys wants to do anything about it. Now, whether or not somebody else on Montreal wants to do anything about it, that's a different story, right? I mean, they talked to Jake Evans today, the Montreal media. I wasn't in there, but I asked them kind of what they said, and it was essentially along the lines that, he's ready to move past it. It's over, water under the bridge and that sort of thing. So, yeah, and the Evgeny Svechnikov thing, like, I'll just say one thing on it. It's going to be difficult if we just separate. I mean, it's very difficult right now to do that. But we have to, if we think about Evgeny Svechnikov, he's a Russian player tonight. He's kind of in a tough spot, is he not? Like, he's going to have to stand there for the Ukrainian national anthem, the Canadian national anthem, whatever. It's going to be the Ukrainian one, right? If he didn't want to do that, if he doesn't want to do that, it looks bad. If he does, it looks bad. It just depends, right? Like on what side of the fence you're on with this whole thing. And so, I mean, obviously, it's very awful what Russia is doing, but there's also people in Russia that wouldn't agree with what Putin is doing. And, they sometimes seem to get kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of painted with the same brush. And we haven't heard of Evgeny Svechnikov. He was asked for today. He doesn't want to talk about it. It's understandable. Like, you get why some of these guys don't want to. So, yeah, like, it's a bit of a weird situation for Svechnikov. And at the same time, Alexander Romanov on the Montreal Canadiens, who also Russian player, that's going to be on the ice tonight, standing for the national anthem when they're playing the Ukrainian national anthem. It's a weird situation if you can kind of separate just these two couple of players from what's going on and kind of that sort of thing. But obviously, it's all entangled. This whole thing is an awful thing what Russia is doing, of course.
Yeah, well, listen,
it's weird. So.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this, I mean, to me, Ovechkin's sort of in a class of his own because of things that he's done in the past and the way that he's stumped for Putin and all that. But I mean, as far as the rest of the rank and file Russian players, as far as I'm concerned, are just being they're victims of it too. Like so many of the Russian people are that are not supporting this. And listen, I'm not a guy, to be honest. I'll go on this, and this is somewhat topical today. I could not care less about the political views of players on the Winnipeg Jets or any other team. I mean, they're hockey players, they're people. Everyone can have their own opinion, whatever it is. And to be honest with you, that's what our society is based about. But for something like this, it's an absolute no-win situation for these Russian players because, I mean, certainly say they did want to step up and, hey, I'm a proud Russian, I believe in what we're doing, they would be absolutely vilified, and rightfully so. And on the other side, if they decide to take a stand and call out, there is some serious concern about, their families and the repercussions of that. So I wouldn't expect any Russian player, for the most part, to have really anything to say on this. And I don't blame them for a second on it because it's an absolute no-win situation of something that's probably weighing very heavily on all those individuals as well.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing, right? When you saw Artemi Panarin talk about this before this, like this was a couple of years ago now, when that happened, that was a big deal, right? Artemi Panarin's a massive name in the NHL and in Russia. When Ovi talked about it just a couple days ago, he's a massive name both in the NHL and in Russia, and Ovechkin really towed that line, right? And there's a lot of criticism that he's received for that because it's like, you're Alex Ovechkin. Your Instagram photo is you sitting or standing, I suppose, next to Vladimir Putin. You've clearly been supportive of him in the past publicly. Never mind whatever privately it is, right? So, yeah, and so maybe you expect more from Alex Ovechkin, right? I mean, here's a guy with influence and perhaps even some power in Russia. Who knows? But you would expect more from him. But yeah, like you said, for some of these kind of rank and file Russian players who are just trying to, Evgeny Svechnikov is just trying to find his way in the NHL, right? I mean, here's a first round draft back who is not playing for his team that drafted him in the first round anymore. He's trying to, find get a foothold on an NHL spot consistently and get a contract, right? And now he's got to put in this, between a rock and a hard place where, what does he do tonight? It's a difficult spot, and And it's for us it kind of sucks that he doesn't talk, or more Russian players don't talk. But again, like you said, at the same time, you kind of totally understand it too, because I don't know, we just don't know. We don't understand that type of I don't know, what do you want to call it, oppression, whatever it is, right? I mean, it's tough, and I'm not even comfortable sometimes talking about, because I just don't know. I don't know enough about it just to say, hey, this guy should stand up, but this guy shouldn't, or whatever. Like I don't know how that works.
No, and it's
and
it's unfair, I think, of anyone to expect. Like, it's very easy to sit back in the comfort of your own home in Canada and have hot takes on all of these things. I mean, there's some things that are obvious. I mean, war sucks. Everybody wants peace. Yeah. Everyone does not want what's happening to us. But I mean, there's a lot of people that are being put in horrible situations right now by this. And, many of these players are exactly that. And I'll tell you what, I was just talking with Moe Khan about this. I don't know if you watched much of that Leafs Caps game yesterday.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's certainly Ovechkin. I mean, Ovechkin and Kuznetsov were both -4 last night. I mean, they did not have games. I can't imagine, and particularly on Ovi. And I've always been a huge fan of Ovi as a player, and I know he's taken a lot of heat right now from a lot of people for far more important reasons that have anything to do with who wins and loses a hockey game. Yeah. But how this, especially on some of the more prominent Russian players, I imagine this is going to be, probably one of the biggest challenges of many of these guys' career, to focus on the job at hand and play through this with so much uncertainty about what's happening back at home with their own people, and the fact that they are looked at as natives of the #1 world enemy right now that's doing things that we haven't seen in a very, very long time on a massive scale.
Exactly, right. And that's the thing that we in Canada don't understand. I mean, we just had this whole freedom convoy thing, and it just seems even more sillier at this point that you're complaining that you have to wear a mask, right? When you're like, and then you look at thousands of people in Russia protesting what their own government is doing there and getting arrested immediately, right? It took us 3 weeks in Canada to or make a couple of arrests for people that were essentially locking down downtown Ottawa. So it's just a completely different, it's just completely different culture, country, everything, right? Politics, all that stuff is different, and it bleeds heavily into everything, right? It seems that way, at least. I tried to reach out to people that are either from Russia or know a lot about that, to try and understand more, what players are facing. What could Alex Ovechkin do differently? What should he do differently? Is there a danger to him saying something out of line? Is it more of a case for maybe an unknown player? Not necessarily unknown, but a player that doesn't have the same profile that Alex Ovechkin has. And so, part of this too, I think, is just education for a lot of people too, to understand that not every Russian is a bad person, and they're just led by somebody who is very tyrannical and crazy, right? He's just, the guy's insane. So it's just a tough situation for everybody. And I don't know. It's obviously great for Housley to be there tonight. I think it's a really nice gesture by the Jets to have them. I think it just creates also, at the same time, like anything that happens with this whole situation, there is some uncomfortableness, I suppose, about it from a certain side of different players and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well,
I think, and just to say, I think that might have been part of the reason why Mark Scheifele. I have a really tough time thinking that Mark Scheifele had no idea that Housley was going to be there tonight, right?
Well, no, yeah, but he probably had no idea why it was significant.
Right. But what is he like? What is he supposed to say? You have a Russian teammate in the dressing room, right? Like, what do you say to try and and maybe Mark Scheifele should just say what he feels, but I don't know. That's a tough situation for Mark to be in too. I mean, you're literally playing with a guy who's on your second line, who's having a really good time right now on the ice, and like you said earlier, is this going to impact Ovi and Kuznetsov, and how much of this is weighing on guys? I imagine tonight is weighing quite heavily on Svechnikov, and he just doesn't. The team is trying to. I guess protect him as best as they can, that sort of thing, try and get him through the day or whatever. Like, I think that's where the humanity part of it kind of sets in for, even an NHL player making a lot of money and all that sort of thing. It's still a guy with feelings and all that stuff that he's going through today. And so it's really difficult trying to understand what we don't really know too much about.
And you know what? And one bird said, hey, don't say put in horrible positions, Hustler. I truly believe that these Russian players have been put in a horrible position. I mean, I don't blame any Russian player in the National Hockey League. And again, maybe you can keep Ovechkin in a different category. But I mean, like, Evgeny Svechnikov doesn't have a damn thing to do with what's taking place right now. That's captivating the world and having everyone spending all their time watching these news channels, hoping for an end immediately to what's going on. I do have a lot of compassion for these guys, and and where they are, and I mean, just bring it back to the game. I mean, which is what their job is, which is why we pay attention to these individuals. I really do think that for the rank and file of NHL players that have Russian passports, this next little while is going to be one of the most challenging, probably the most challenging of their entire careers. All that being said, God knows I don't want to talk about the damn Freedom Convoy or anything like that. I do. Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, listen, you can have all those conversations, but Winnipeg Sports Talk talking about what the preferences of particular players in the NHL are. I mean, listen, I don't care. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. You can have yours as well, but I'm much more concerned about the 2 points on the line tonight. And, I really think that is going to have to be, the focus of the Winnipeg Jets. And I really do hope that, the anthem, in addition to being a moment that everyone will remember for a long time and shows incredible support for the Ukrainian people, especially here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is one of the largest Ukrainian Ukrainian populations outside of Ukraine. I do hope that the passion and the emotion can maybe spill over into the game tonight, because, Scott, as we've seen so far this season, the Jets have been incredibly underwhelming at times, especially in early Monday, Tuesday games, sort of those lazier games. You might not have that same environment in the building that they've had in the past. And the bottom line is there can be absolutely no ease up by the Winnipeg Jets right now, because their backs are against the wall. And if they don't put together a significant winning streak, it's selling time in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and you're already coming into a game where, the Montreal Canadiens, in the standings aren't a good team. But if you look at them over their past 5 games, they haven't lost either, right? So now they're coming into a time where it's like, you got a hockey team that's in the midst of their coaching bump after Martin St. Louis took over there as the head coach, and now you have to find a way to match the energy that they have. And the one thing about that Arizona win was like, okay, so the Jets, I don't want to say they escaped with the win, because they played really good in the third period enough to win that hockey game. But, I mean, let's not forget, it was 3-2 Arizona going into the third period, too. It wasn't like the Jets blew out a bad team. And so that's part of it here, too. I mean, the Jets have to not just be looking past Montreal, who is, based on the standings, isn't a good team, but it is starting to find some confidence in their game. And this is one of the things that the Jets have struggled with mightily all year, is confidence and consistency and all of those things that have basically put them in a position where they need a massive amount of help, on top of the fact that they have to take care of their own business. And like you said, I mean, tonight, it's almost like every game is must win at this point. And we haven't been in that position in Winnipeg for a while, right? And so it's hard to remember, maybe back to the 2014-15 season, right, when the Jets made the first time they made the playoffs since returning to Winnipeg. And it's like, this team has underperformed, as you said, and all of those things, and they really got to put it together. And it's interesting too. Like, they're only 6 points back, and so like you look at that, it's not, but it's a big number, even though it's not really, right? Because every team, and we've heard Jets players ad nauseum talk about this, that good teams are finding ways to win right now, and the Jets just came off a stretch before the Arizona win where they were 1-3-1 at a time where they need to be winning a lot. So. Yeah, I mean, this is the night where you got to take whatever you can from, if you thought you played well in Dallas and Calgary and obviously, the first period in Colorado, and then what you took from that third period and even the second in Arizona, and try and, you got to find a way to put all that all together. And one of the hallmarks of that win in Arizona was you had scoring from 3 different lines, right? So that's sort of, this team has struggled a lot this year trying to find that sort of thing, right? So, Yeah, they need a lot of things to happen, and they've said all the things that they can say, but you really just need it to come together on the ice, and that's where it's been, the biggest issue for the Jets this year is when the gates closed. Whatever they say half the time, doesn't always, kind of translate into what they're doing.
Well, and here's the other thing that's very problematic for the Winnipeg Jets, which just goes to, add more importance to, a must-win 2 points tonight. Sort of kicking around the calculations with the 30 games left to go with where the Jets were. They needed to go 27-3. They needed to be 13 games above NHL 500 over the course of those last 30 games. And then when you look at the teams that they're chasing right now, ahead of them are the Vancouver Canucks, the Anaheim Ducks, the Edmonton Oilers, the Dallas Stars, and of course the Nashville Predators and Minnesota Wild, if we're talking about teams in the division, and then the Vegas Golden Knights and the Kings. And nobody thought the Vegas Golden Knights would be closer to the playoff line, but they've sort of come back. The Jets do have 2 games against the Golden Knights. They do have 1 game against the LA Kings, but they finished their season series against Minnesota. They're finished with Nashville. They've got the Friday night game against Dallas, and that's it. They're done with Edmonton, done with Anaheim, and done with the Vancouver Canucks. They don't have the opportunity for those quote-unquote 4-point games. Or in a lot of cases, they blew those opportunities earlier this season against teams like the Vancouver Canucks and the Anaheim Ducks. So, I mean, Scott, and then when you think about breaking it down to how many losses you can actually afford to have, there's 2 home games against the Colorado Avalanche. There's a home and a road game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, there's some monster teams on this on this schedule for the rest of the year. And there's not a lot of leeway. And that's part of the reason why when you look at, when they're crunching the numbers of the chances to make the playoffs, it is so low right now. Listen, it doesn't happen. And we're not even talking about maybe if, with the trade deadline, unless this team basically starts a significant winning streak. Well, started it on Arizona, continue it this week, and then, try and make something happen against a couple real good teams that come in here with Tampa and New York.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Like you guys, the Jets need to go out there and put themselves within striking distance of a playoff spot by March 26th. And that's really all there is to it, right? I mean, and even then, like, so that's where like the conundrum begins, right? Like if you're on the kind of the precipice of maybe, getting a playoff spot and you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, what do you do? Like that's the thing. Like, do you want, because, Andrew Kopp turns into a rental, right? Like a self-rental, pretty much Paul Stastny, same thing, right? Like you can get assets for these guys, but this is also a team that we went into this year all kind of suggesting that, there's a 2 to 3 year window here for this team to try and win a Stanley Cup because you have Mark Scheifele's contract expiring, Blake Wheeler's, and probably the most significant one is Connor Hellebuck's, right? And so, that's a few years out, and that's where you're kind of thinking, okay, well, this team can figure it out. The other thing, too, I think that's interesting is, if you can win tonight's game and then you go into Friday against Dallas, I mean, that's a big game, obviously. But that might be, well, I mean, every game seems to be the biggest one of the year, but that's a huge game given where Dallas is. They're in the second wild card right now, if I'm not mistaken, right? So that's a massive game for the Jets that they have to win. Perhaps you have Nikolai Ehlers back for that game. I mean, that's the one thing. He's on the ice. He's flying around. The Jets have 2 practices scheduled at least between, tomorrow and Thursday. So that's a big deal too. Can they get Nikolai Ehlers back and help them kind of make that push? But if you lose to Montreal tonight, it's just like, like now that game, maybe Dallas wins, maybe, Edmonton wins and Anaheim wins and whatever. And you just keep digging yourself in, this hole that you can't get out. Right. And so, like you said, like we've all kind of written or, said or whatever, the Jets need to string together wins, and it can't be 1 or 2. It's got to be like 4 and 5 and 6, right? Like you need to go on a run where you're winning 8 of 10 or 9 of 10, ideally. That's just, it seems like a pipe dream right now for this team because they haven't really, I think they've put together 4 straight this year and that's it. So that's just not enough at this time of year.
Yeah, that was right at the beginning of the season. I mean, that hasn't really happened. I mean, there's been a couple 2-game winning streaks in the year of 2022, and that's part of the reason why we are where we are right now, following this team going into less than 30 games left in the regular season. It's obviously taken a toll on a lot of players, and we certainly heard that from Blake Wheeler on Saturday. What did you make of the that back and forth with he and Harbour? And you know, he had mentioned earlier, and I think this is a very fair question by Jeff, you know, that said that this has been the most trying year of his entire career. Was that just sort of, you know, an example of just, you know, how stressed the leader of this hockey club is right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of, you know, my first thought was like, you know, like, what are you doing, Blake? Like, you know, this is a fair question. It wasn't, you know, antagonizing or anything like that. It's like, you know, this is a fair question that needs to be asked, Blake, and you're the leader. You wear the C here. Like, you know, my first thought was like, I looked at the way that Pierre-Luc Dubois dealt with the Colorado loss, and what he said after Friday's game, and then to hear Blake on Saturday say what he said and get, you know, defensive and mad and whatever. And like, we have to understand here too, again, Blake's a human, you know, like this is the leader of a team and it's not going well. Blake is in the back nine in his career and he's on like hole 16 right now, right? Like it's not just he's starting on hole 10, he's on the 16th and maybe even the 17th at this point. And here's a guy who, you know, could have won a Stanley Cup in Boston if he wasn't traded, and, you know, hasn't gotten anywhere close to that, you know, since then. And so there is frustration there. A year where, and you know, I always go back to Blake saying, well, we haven't won anything yet, right? Like there's always this preseason hype on this team, you know, this year and years past, and he's always said he's always done really well to kind of quell that. But, you know, yeah, I just think that, you know, this is a time where like Blake owes it to his teammates, and you know, I wrote this in the Sun. Like, I think he owes it to the fans. I think he owes it to he doesn't owe the media anything, but I mean, what he says through the media is what gets to the fans. And honestly, I mean, you know, I'm sure some of his teammates read it too. You know, that's where he owes the explanation right now. Like, what's going on? Why isn't it? You know, why is this the third straight year where it's, you know, it's very uncertain if the Jets are even going to make the playoffs. You know, like it's, you know, why is it like that right now? And why hasn't this team kind of been able to kind of pull up their boots? And
the thing about Scott is, right? And the thing about it is quickly is that, you know, once they got through the initial, you know, Blake having his back up and they got into, you know, the actual questions about where they're at right now and how they're in this situation, that was what Blake really didn't have any answers for. And I mean, maybe, you know, he was just guarding his thing because, you know, there was nothing to be gained by being honest about where they were. But I've often said, and this goes back to the old days, I mean, I joked about bad mood Blake. I mean, when Wheeler seemed to be the most pissed off and cantankerous with the media was often when he played his best hockey. Right. And I'll tell you what, coming out of that game on Saturday where he and his line were minus, every guy with the letter on his jersey was a -4, and they lost in one of the most embarrassing fashions I can remember in a long time. You know, he had every reason to be in a bad mood, but it was more about themselves and the way that they had been playing and what happened the night before. And sometimes that gets projected out. The bottom line is the time is now to pick it up. And you know what? It was funny. A big question there was that he didn't have an answer for was, you know, why is it always seem like there's one of the top two lines is going and the other one isn't? And I'll tell you what, Adam Lowry's starting to get a little bit of puck luck. He's been playing his ass off as of late. And you did get contributions from both the squad, from, you know, Pierre-Luc Dubois' line. I mean, he has been grinding. I thought Kyle Connor was brilliant. I'll tell you what, that goal from Blake Wheeler in the aftermath of that was maybe the most important point of the entire game to get back into it, in addition to some big saves from Eric Comrie. But
well, and here's the other thing with that too, is like Blake, oftentimes his leadership has always been shown on the ice, and that's slipped in the last couple of years, right? Because he's not able to, you know, Father Time is catching up with Blake Wheeler. He's still a good player. I mean, he can still be effective, right?
Absolutely he is.
But Father Time is catching up with him, and he's not the same player. So he could go out and he would have, you know, if the team was playing bad, he could put them on their back and do, you know, we all remember the flip up of the thing, the whole lunch pail, whatever, right after that I believe it was a shootout goal that won the game for the Jets a couple seasons ago. You know, so it's all of those things that Blake used to be able to do to show his leadership. And he's never, like, Blake's never been the greatest talker, but he says what needs to be said, right? And the one thing with Blake, anytime, and you referred to this, when the team is doing poorly, Blake would be one of the nicest guys to talk to, because he's trying to control a certain message, right? He's trying to say it's not as low as you guys might think it is. And then when we would talk about his milestones or his goals or a big win for the team, right, he would almost be snarly a bit, a little bristly at questions because he didn't want it to get too high, right? So, Blake's always been very good at that, at trying to keep it as even keel, at least in the media, as he can. But I do think that, with his play kind of dipping, especially to start the year, and let's not take anything away from Blake here. He got COVID. I think that hurt him quite a bit in terms of, just like, right as the season kind of started, he gets COVID and then he's off for a bit. And then obviously the knee injury, and it took him a long time to get back. I think he's kind of back to being that contributing factor in this team. And obviously that goal on Sunday, was a great, it was a great take. He made the right move, all that stuff. But I think for Blake, it's been a difficult year because it's another year where he's not having, I think, the same offensive impact that he's used to have. He's not winning games single-handedly, that sort of thing that he used to do when he was putting up 90 points a year. And so it's been difficult. And I think there's a frustration there for Blake, just as a player, just as a captain, it is not going well. And so sometimes that spills over. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and I think he wears it. I think he understands the pressure on it. And to be frank, I mean, at times it really hasn't gone well for that line. I don't put a lot of stock or spend a lot of time talking about plus minus. But I mean, you can't help but look at the Winnipeg Jets stats. I mean, Blake Wheeler is the second worst minus on the team at minus 11, and Mark Scheifele's minus 19. Yeah. And when you've got other players, a number of of forwards that are in the plus, I mean, it basically speaks to the fact that they have had a real tough time throughout this season, and that's a big part of the reason why the Winnipeg Jets are where they are. But I firmly believe that was a little bit of a pushback, just from a guy that was, very frustrated about both their season personally, but most importantly, the responsibility of a team that had very, very high hopes right now that is on the verge of falling out of that, really the playoff race, never mind a playoff spot, after a incredibly disappointing road trip.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? I mean, when he spoke, the team was in the midst of their 4-game losing streak, right? So, I mean, that's sort of it. He's talking...
It was the day after the Colorado game.
Crushing defeat, right? Yeah, like that's it. Like you said, the worst loss of their season. Because it happens so spectacularly, right? Like, you get a 3-0 lead against the best team in the NHL, and then you piss it away, right? And it's pissed away because you just stop playing. You essentially, I mean, Mark, if you watched the TSN broadcast during the game when Josh Morrissey spoke after the second and during the second intermission, you could tell Josh Morrissey was mad, right? Like he's like, what has happened? Right? Like the team that played in the second period of that game was nothing like the first, and that speaks to the larger issue of consistency this year. I mean, I forget what the stat was, but that was the first time the Jets have ever blown a 3-0 lead and lost in regulation since they returned to Winnipeg. Like, that's how bad that loss was, right? And it happened at a time where you got to win, and now you're playing a team that you would, if you squeak into the playoffs, you probably play them, maybe first round. Like, it's a disaster. That was a disastrous game for them. And, full credit to them for coming out on Sunday and figuring it out, because as Kyle Connor said after the game, especially when Arizona took the lead in the second period there, Kyle Connor said, this is a team where we could have just packed it in, right? Like, I mean, it's just another bad luck, bad blow. They could have packed it in. So credit to the team for digging themselves out of that. But again, what does Arizona's game mean, if anything, if they lose tonight and all that sort of thing? So it all comes back to kind of, how they respond now. How does Blake respond? How does Mark respond? That's kind of where this team is at right now. There's a lot of questions that they have to look in the mirror and try and figure it out. And I think even Pierre-Luc Dubois kind of alluded to that a little bit this morning. Like, every guy's, they're a good team when every guy is pulling in the same direction. But the problem is there's been a lot of times this year where they just haven't been.
Well, and you know what I mean? Let's just touch on Dubois for a minute, because, I mean, he did have sort of a quiet 6 games period where he just had the 1 assist.
Yeah.
But for my money, he was the best player on the ice, at least from a forward standpoint, for both of the last couple of games. And it was interesting. We were talking with Mike yesterday, and it sort of seems like in some ways we were really seeing a changing of the guard of the quote unquote leadership to some young guys stepping up and doing it themselves. And Pierre-Luc Dubois has been right at the top of that list.
Oh, geez. I mean, I said it. I was on Kenny and Rennie the other night after I believe it was after the Colorado game. And I was like, man, the way that he handled himself after the game, how he kind of demanded stuff from his teammates, like, this is a captain. Like, this is a captain material. And what we had heard, I think Jeff tweeted out that Pierre-Luc Dubois wanted to come out and talk.
Yeah, which is unbelievable. Like, explain to people how, all that works, because listen, I am one that would expect the captain, to be honest, to speak. And listen, I think because of just how bad that game went for Blake, it was probably good that, he had a little bit of time. And of course, he stepped up and, and did it, the mood he was in regardless, he did speak the next day. But the fact that after a loss like that, the guy that's probably been speaking the most, and we heard from him again today before this game, is Pierre-Luc Dubois, one of the newest players and youngest players on the team. I think speaks volumes about how he sees himself and the example that he's trying to put forth with his play and his effort each and every night.
Right. And, to go back to just that whole thing, like, if Blake Wheeler comes out and just spits nails after the game, probably not the best. Yeah, it depends, right? It depends because, I think that Blake probably should have been out there, right? If Pierre-Luc Dubois wants to go out there, I'm Blake Wheeler, I'm putting my hand in the way and say, at least I'm going first, right? Whether or not. I mean, that's kind of how I think I would handle it, but who knows? But, I think, and that was the whole thing. Like, Pierre-Luc Dubois, he came out after 2 of those losses on the trip and spoke about it. And I think, here's a guy who's, I think it shows his commitment to the team. Like, I think it shows that he wants to win. Like, here's a guy who wants to put a team on his back and lead them to the promised land. And he's 23. Like, I think this is a guy who is very at peace with what happened to Columbus and all that. And now he's like solely focused on what he wants to do here. Whatever happens in the offseason, whatever kind of contract he signs here, all that stuff being said, I think this is a guy that this team should hitch their wagon to because he leads by example. This is the thing. Yeah, he might have gone 6 games with just 1 point. But can you say in all those 6 games that he wasn't really engaged in the games? Like, and I would argue that no. Like, I mean, I would argue there's maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 games this season where Pierre-Luc Dubois hasn't really been at his, engaged top level, whatever. But this is a guy that goes out every night and he's winning puck battles. I mean, I remember the one goal where he takes a shot and then he dives to take another shot and then Kyle Connor scores. I think it was against Colorado too. And so it's like that, like it's that second and even third efforts from this guy. Like that's the type of leader that guys are going to on your team, young and even old, that are going to, they're going to follow that. Right. And so, yeah, I think, just the way that Pierre-Luc Dubois has kind of handled himself this year, after his down, self-admitted down year last year with everything that kind of happened to him. I think this is a guy that's come to this team this year fully focused on helping this team win. He's shown it through his points, through his efforts, through his words, through his actions, like all of those things. It hasn't worked out for the team because it's been difficult for some other guys to kind of do the same thing, or at least to all do it in kind of unison. But yeah, like I really think that Pierre-Luc Dubois is turning into potentially the next captain of this team, and just by the way that he goes, and even if he isn't the next captain, if he's an A or whatever it is, like he's going to be a massive part of this leadership, if not the top guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, we joked that, it's the changing of the guard of the leadership. And I joked with Mike yesterday, are we witnessing a hostile takeover of it? Because, listen, I mean, you know what? Yeah. You're judged by, what you do, what you say. And, I'm with you. He's been checking all the boxes off right now. Yeah. And, if they had that same, performance from everybody else on the hockey team, we're definitely not having this conversation right now. Talk about the bottom 6 for a second. I was at the Moose game on Saturday. I thought David Gustafsson looked great, looked ready to go, taking the puck to the net, just like Dave Lowry keeps on preaching, scores a goal, ends up scoring in the shootout for the Moose on Sunday. And then you think it's some of the consistently underwhelming performances by some of the players in the bottom 6. Yeah. I'll be honest, Scott, every day I do not see the note from the Winnipeg Jets that David Gustafsson has been recalled, and not just recalled to be with the team, but being in the lineup. I scratch my head. Where are you at on that?
Yeah, I do too, right? I mean, same thing with Billy Heinola too. And I know this sparks a lot of debate between people, and I kind of got the chat going next to me, so I'm paying a bit of attention to it, obviously. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, but you have guys like, Austin Pagansky, credit to him, he works really hard. So does, Christian Vesalainen. But like, should those guys be playing over David Gustafsson? And like, the problem with David Gustafsson, he's played 1 minute and 20 seconds or something like that.
He's the walking incarnation of Murphy's Law. I mean,
but I think you still got to go back to a guy who has a lot more promise than a couple of guys that don't seem to have it anymore. Well, at least with Christian Vesalainen. So there's been some issues there. I think maybe part of the reason is if they want him to play center, and they got Toninato doing that, and Toninato has been playing well, and obviously he's formed a really good partnership with Adam Lowry on the penalty kill, right? And he does the things that are required from interim coach.
Toninato has been good. I mean, Toninato has actually. Yeah. I mean, like when I look at that group, I mean, Adam Lowry is consistently doing what you expect Adam Lowry to do, and has really been making a difference as of late. I think Dominic Toninato is in that exact same boat. He's been rewarded. He's probably should have a few more points. I mean, I think about that open net that Adam Brooks missed on a beautiful setup against Arizona as a perfect example of it. And I got a lot of time for Jansen Harkins and think that Hark probably fits well, potentially up with those guys. The Pagansky, I mean, we've barely mentioned his name ever, and I don't think that's good for a guy that's trying to crack, become an NHL regular or consistent, but certainly he keeps getting thrown out there. And I mean, as far as Vesalainen, I mean, Svechnikov's been up and down. He's looked great lately, getting that opportunity to play with the guys up front. But to me, Vesalainen has been the biggest enigma, and probably when we're talking about guys in the bottom six, the guy that has wasted an absolutely glorious opportunity to really establish himself as not just a regular, but a key piece of the Jets' future. And I think that from what we've seen so far this year, I'm certainly far, far from being sold that he's got a long-term future here, because I think they put a lot into him. They've given him a ton of opportunities, and that has not been reciprocated from the player.
Yeah, indeed. I completely agree with you. And I think that's where some of the question mark is. Like, in my belief, I think Logan Stanley's probably injured right now, but I don't know what's going on with that situation, because that too. I mean, that's like, why is Nathan Beaulieu playing over Logan Stanley or Ville Heinola? And so it's one of those bizarre things where it's like, that's the part I don't understand. So Dave Lowry talks about, like, guys earning spots and that sort of thing, and you play the guy that's whatever hot, or that's doing the right things. Well, if you're not giving opportunities to guys like Ville and David and those guys, right? Like, then what? It's hard to get them into the lineup and let them take advantage of it. And I'd argue that Ville Heinola didn't really do anything wrong to come out of the lineup. So yeah, I think he was probably a victim at the time, at least because of the injury situation, of being the one guy on the team that's waiver exempt. So that made it's an easy paper move, and they probably want to trade Nathan Beaulieu and try and get anything for him that they possibly can. So like I get why you don't put Nathan Beaulieu through waivers in that regard, but this is a team that needs to win hockey games, right? Like, so put your best players in, and put guys in that are hungry for it, and let them go out and do it, right? Like what like, I don't know what the Jets have to lose at this point, right? They're already on the outside looking in. They have to win games. So, make some changes to make it work. Like, this was the thing. They kept Nathan Beaulieu in, and it was just like, what's going on? And perhaps Logan Stanley's injured. We just haven't figured that out yet. Probably should ask him today. I forgot. But, it's just one of those things where it's like, what's going on? Like, I get that, like, some of these moves aren't always going to push the needle, or move the needle too much. But at the same time, like, if you get a guy that's doing more than just kind of like twirling around like a Vesalainen's been doing or whatever, maybe it adds some offense. Maybe that's what you need. You need that spark. And I think David Gustafsson is one of those guys, and he can play the PK and he can do all those things. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I don't necessarily understand it, because the mantra from Lowry since he came in is, if you earn it, stay in the lineup. And there's been times here where guys haven't earned it and are still in the lineup, and vice versa.
It's so different when you're comparing the forwards to the defense, because I mean, on the blue line, you've got 5 guys that are veterans, that are paid well, that are signed for another couple years. and then the 6th spot, which was Logan Stanley originally. Beaulieu's been in some spot duty. And then when there was injuries, we saw all the young guys, Dylan Samberg get an opportunity, and of course, Ville Heinola. And Ville was in, and Ville's had some good games. Yeah. But I'll say this. I mean, I think it speaks to the competition on the blue line. I thought he had a really rough game against Chicago in that. And listen, he was not the only one. Right. But if you went down and broke down how those pucks ended up in the net for a guy that's normally really good with the zone exits and getting the puck out, I mean, that didn't happen. It ended up in their own net. And, I think at that point, Dave Lowry thought, and I thought maybe part of it, the rematch with Minnesota, I thought really spoke to the fact that maybe they wanted to have Logan Stanley in because they thought that maybe they would need a big guy that would maybe be able to throw down considering what was coming in. But yeah, I mean, like having Stanley is a healthy scratch for Bo. I mean, I said it last week. I was surprised, although I'll give Beaulieu credit. I thought, I mean, he is what he is. But man, he's playing hard right now, and he's actually made some plays that have helped the team. He had a couple primary assists on the game on Sunday, and of course, blocked that shot that ended up leading to the 3-0 lead. That being said, he's found himself in some rough positions on some highlights going the other way. But all of that, I mean, far harder for young guys to go in and stick in the defense group right now, as opposed to the forwards, which Dave Lowry's basically been playing who's ever been available. But now that Gus is healthy and now that Gus is back, it blows my mind that, he wouldn't be one of the top 12 available forwards right now for Dave Lowry to throw into the lineup for a game like tonight.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know how much we can beat this dead horse, because it's one of those things where I feel like we've been on this kind of play the young guys train for a while now. Like, it's not just this year; it's in years past where it's like guys probably deserve to be in the lineup, but they've kind of been marinating in the AHL for long. I mean, I think you saw this year more than anything probably opened some eyes to like maybe some of the talent this team has. Like, if Dylan Samberg's healthy and he plays a couple games in the Moose, does he come back? Because like for me, Dylan Samberg didn't. He was injured obviously, and he was playing top 4.
Oh yeah,
like, I mean, this guy was. He came as advertised, right? Smart defensive instincts, always made the right play, very rarely made a mistake. I mean, even with Ville Heinola, you could point to some of the mistakes, whether you want to be that Philly, the way that the Philly game ended or whatever. I mean, in my personal opinion, I thought what Philly did in that Philly game was perfectly fine. And it showed that here's a guy trying to find a game-winning goal with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and it ended poorly. At the same time, I mean, like you said, there is that competition, especially on the blue line. I think Dylan Samberg deserves a spot back when he gets it, and I think he should play over Logan Stanley, Nathan Beaulieu, and even Ville Heinola, because I just think he's so good defensively.
On that topic, Scott, I mean, let's just take a quick look ahead to the deadline before we finish up here. And I mean, listen, there's the usual suspects. I mean, the guys that are UFAs, I mean, you mentioned them, Kopp and Stastny and Beaulieu. I'm sure the for sale sign will be out on those guys.
Yeah.
But bigger picture, when you look into next season, regardless of what happens this year, I mean, if you think that Samberg and Heinola and Stanley can all play right now, there's just not enough spots on the blue line. What do you think the chances that any of the veteran 5, the guys with term on their deals, could potentially be on the move come the 21st?
That's a great question. I just don't know who. Like, I mean, maybe so here's the thing. Like, Nate Schmidt's your top scoring defenseman. Do you trade him? Brendan Dillon is depending how much you want to look at plus minus, is your best plus minus player. And he's a big boy and, does a lot of good things. I like Brendan Dillon's game. I like what he brings to the team on the back end. Like, I don't think he's the guy you trade. So now do you start thinking, okay, do you trade Logan Stanley then? But this is a team that in the expansion draft chose to protect him and put Dylan DeMello out there. And arguably Dylan DeMello is one of their best defensemen at actually stopping, playing defense, right? So how do you get rid of him?
And he plays the right side, which has always been, all the guys with all these defensemen, it seems like they're way more stacked on the left side than they are on the right.
So, like, that's the thing. Like, it's a big decision. You're not trading Josh Morrissey. So that's where I don't understand. Is it Neil Pionk? But, Neil Pionk is sometimes your heart and soul. At the same time, I think he's had a tough year.
Okay, you'd be selling low if you traded Pionk right now.
Right, that's the other thing too. So, like, what do you do, right? Like, I think you probably wait till the summer if you're going to do that type of surgery on the back end. I think you got to figure out what you want to do with these guys. I mean, is Dylan Samberg could probably, he might have made the roster, earlier this year, right? I think, with his training camp, he was robbed of that because he got injured on a silly drill at the end of practice. I mean, I was right there. I watched it right in front of me. I was like, this is the most unfortunate thing that could happen to a guy that would have really pushed Logan Stanley for that spot. But so, yeah, I think Dylan Samberg is a shoe-in next year on this team. It comes down to I feel like this team has this relationship with Ville Heinola where they're just unsure of what they want from him, right? Like his defensive game will come along, I think. And his offensive game, I think, is good. Like this is a team that at times needs a good puck moving defenseman that has an offense. Like here's the thing, who really on this back end has offensive instincts, right now as it's composed? And I would argue not really anybody. Josh Morrissey has really taken a step this year.
Yeah, I would definitely say, I mean, that side of Morrissey's game, we've seen way more this season.
Right.
And I think, there's an argument to be made that the situation he was in with the guys that he was playing, the guys that he was
100%.
surrounded by last night, he wasn't able to do that. And I think they've given him a little bit more rope with the guys that they've been playing. And I think he's been there. And I mean, Nate Schmidt, certainly, I mean, as I said, top scoring defenseman would be in that group. And we saw that in Pionk last year. But it hasn't been enough, and I certainly think that there's a definite room for improvement when you look at the Jets' blue line overall when it comes to that.
Well, and both, Pionk's numbers last year were largely influenced by the penalty or the power play, right? So, if it's the 5-on-5 points, and if you look at the Jets, or are they like the 29th to 30th in defensive scoring again this year? Like that's a problem. Like that used to be a strong suit of a team who had Dustin Byfuglien playing on the back. They've never replaced him in all sorts of different facets, right? Maybe impossible to replace. And I thought during the offseason they were trying to do it 2-for-1 kind of deal with Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt, right? Like that would be it. But it hasn't kind of worked out that way. Like, I mean, I think Brendan Dillon was a little hesitant to start the year with this whole new cross-checking rule and all that. He took a lot of penalties in the preseason and all that. I thought his game in the second half has kind of come to be, but he's not putting up a lot of goals. Neither is Nate Schmidt. Josh Morrissey has 7 now on the year, I believe now. Neil Pionk, not a whole lot. Like that's part of the problem. Like, can Ville Heinola, and we saw it briefly on that power play when Neil Pionk was out of the lineup there with him and Cole Perfetti. Like again, there's flashes of this, but we don't see enough of it to know. And I think the Jets know what they have in him. I'm just not sure doesn't seem like they're willing to play him over some bigger bodies. And we've obviously seen these big defensive teams, right? The Jets got swept by one that went to the Stanley Cup final last year, right? They were big, the Montreal Canadiens defense with Edmondson, Weber, and all that stuff. But I think there's room for. I mean, this team thrived at times with Toby Enstrom, and Toby Enstrom wasn't a big guy, right? Like, but he was very good.
He was effective. He was effective,
right? So that's the thing. And why can't Ville Heinola be like that? And why haven't they kind of allowed him to just kind of make his defensive mistakes? It's not like this team is perfect defensively and you're inserting a guy who's going to hamper that. No, this is a team that is very imperfect defensively. And is Ville Heinola going to do any worse than some of these other guys? And is the upside higher? And I would argue yes. And so, like, why isn't that guy in the lineup? And why isn't obviously Dylan Samberg wasn't, because
I mean, to me, this all goes back to the fact that when healthy, you've got 5 guys that you have big investments in and big contracts, and until some significant move happens with one of those 5 guys, there's simply not enough spot. And I mean, I don't know how Dave Lowry would look at the other guys in a room, especially the veteran players, and name one of those top 5 guys because they want to let a rookie come in and make his mistakes and learn. I mean, listen, we're going to probably be in that situation in a few weeks. And at that point, we'll see what happens. But right now with the season on the line, I mean, they're going to go to battle with the guys they think that give them the best chance to win on that given night. And people have some different thoughts on it. Scott, this has been a great convo. Lots to chop up today heading into this game against the Montreal Canadiens. Fill us in on what you've got cooking this week following the Winnipeg Jets for the Sun.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Because every kind of game, we kind of switch it back and forth. Like, are they going to be sellers? Are they going to be buyers? Are they just going to have to sell anyways because they're not close enough? So
I don't think they're buying anything.
I don't think they're buying anything either, right? Yeah, and I agree with you. And so, like, that's it, right? I mean, it's kind of an interesting season, right? Because, like, I'll try and be quick with this, but, there's 30 games left. And, as a reporter, you don't want there to be 25 games left and nothing to really report on anymore, right? And so, you're kind of hoping that the team kind of stays in it to make it interesting for everybody involved, fans, us who have to write about it, the team itself, like everything. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that's going to be it. But in terms of, the paper, we'll see what tonight brings. And, we'll go from there.
Scotty, thanks so much for doing this, pal. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, Huss. Appreciate it.
Scott Billeck on Twitter. Check out all of his work covering the Winnipeg Jets in the pages of the Winnipeg Sun. All right, we are going to hear from head coach Dave Lowry with his comments about tonight's game in just a moment. Before we do that, a big shout out to our friends and a cheers to the gang down at Little Brown Jug. Pop down and see him at William Avenue. Pick up the amazing Little Brown Jug double. Great fall winter beer right now that very popular. In addition to the iconic 1919, the Anniversary Brute IPA. As well as all the great Little Brown Jug tastes in the winter variety pack. You can pick it up at your local beer store, find restaurants throughout the city, your Manitoba liquor marts, and of course at Little Brown Jug. And they do deliver Wednesday, Friday, and Saturdays all around the city. You can get down to Little Brown Jug. If you can't make it down there, get your order online. Pack it up and get it delivered to you when you need it here in Winnipeg. LittleBrownJug.ca is the website. A big shout out to our friends at Princess Auto. And hey, some curling news. For our Princess Auto curling report, Briar gets going on Friday. And I'd mentioned that we were going to have Colton Lott on the program, one of the top young curlers in Manitoba, to sort of, give us his thoughts on what's happening at the Briar. He's now playing in the Briar. Team McEwen, proudly sponsored by Princess Auto, announcing today that due to a positive COVID test and a lingering injury, that lead Colin Hodgson will not be participating in the Briar with Team McEwen. So Colton Lott stepping up, going in as the lead with Mike McEwen and Reed Carruthers and the guys. So great opportunity for one of the top young curlers in the province to play in the Briar. And we'll definitely check up with the guys heading into the event beginning on Friday, as well as next week here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors, the McEwen Rink, Manitoba's representative at the Briar, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them at one of 2 local locations, or check them out online and shop 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And hey, I tell you what, tonight might be a great night to pop by Boston Pizza. If you're not going to the game, you're definitely going to want to be watching it on the big screen with big sound, especially for those anthems at the beginning of the game. And no better place to do that in Winnipeg and Manitoba than your local Boston Pizza. Stop in for those gourmet pizzas, delicious Boston wings, ice cold schooners, and more. And certainly if you are going to the game, a great stop before or after. Visit our friend Crystal and the gang down at Boston Pizza City Place. Of course, you can always order and check out their game day specials online at bostonpizza.com. All right, well, we spent a lot of time talking about this game tonight. Great visits from Moe Khan and Scott Billeck. Let's hear from head coach Dave Lowry as he met the media before his Winnipeg Jets begin a huge homestand tonight against the Habs.
Dave, you said on the weekend that Andrew Kopp was close. Is he in tonight? I'm going to need a verbal answer for the microphone.
He sure is.
Just what does that do in terms of your ability maybe to balance your lines a little more than you had?
Throw in a top 6 player back into your lineup, right? It's going to help us. He plays in all situations. And when players like that are out of your lineup, you do miss them. And I've always said, right, it does present opportunities, but you always welcome these guys back.
You mentioned top 6 player, but that's not necessarily where he's going to start tonight, right?
He'll start with our forwards. Yeah. And you know what, like, we all get caught up top 6, top 9, top 12. He's going to play, and he's going to play a lot of minutes for us.
We didn't talk to you yesterday, but obviously Nikolai joined the group and the non-contact was out there again today. He looks like he's moving fairly well. What have you seen from him, and what can you give us a timeline on where he's at?
I don't have a definitive timeline, but he is getting closer. With him skating in the group, the next step is to get out of the yellow and to get into a regular color, take some contact, and then play.
Dave, you've often said that, it's opportunity, whether it's been COVID or whether it's been injury. So has a guy like Evgeny Svechnikov taken advantage of this latest opportunity, in your opinion?
Absolutely. Look where he's playing. Look at just go back to the last game. Goalie's out in last minute and he's on the ice. I would say that, yes, he has taken advantage of the opportunity. And the one thing with Svech is he's going to have to continue to play that way and commit to the details that are required. And when he does that, he's an extremely good player, and he complements Doobie and Casey.
What are those required details? Because we know he's been contributing to the offense, back-to-back games with a goal and that sort of thing. I mean, is it board battles? Is it helping support in the defensive zone? Can you share some of those details with us?
Where did he score his goals? In and around the net, right? And the expectation is that that's where he's got to get to. He's got to be a guy that can get in on a forecheck, turn over pucks, and then get to the net. And you don't ask him to score goals, but you expect him to contribute.
Just wanted to ask on another injured player, Cole Perfetti got hurt, I think, the day after Andrew did, and you'd said at the time he's probably going to be a little bit longer. Do you have an update on him? Is he skating yet or no?
No, he's not skating. So he's still a ways away.
Dave, in your mind, is the Mark Scheifele incident from last year behind you, or do you expect him to have to maybe answer the bell tonight?
I really believe the only people talking about it are you guys. We haven't addressed that, and as far as we're concerned, that is, that's an event that has passed.
Just in terms of your starting goalie, Dave, I mean, Eric's won his last 3 starts. Is there a temptation to, go with a, you win, you're in kind of scenario? Or
not tonight.
No. Yeah, Connor's your number 1 guy, and so it was a no-brainer to go back to him tonight.
Yes.
What do you expect this game to look like?
I expect it to be a fast game. Just watching the way that they're playing right now, there's a lot of creativity in the offensive zone. For us, we're going to have to defend well. They're playing extremely fast, and we're going to have to match that.
Is that the biggest change under Martin that you've noticed in the video prep for this, Dave? Or is it a confidence thing, that players can sometimes go through as well?
Well, there seems to be lots of energy in their game. They seem to be relaxed. And when a team starts playing fast, relaxed, and usually they're dangerous.
Do you have any Martin St. Louis stories from you would have played against him, right?
Yeah.
Anything stand out just from your playing days?
Yeah, the fact that they won the cup.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
So I really don't have any good things to say. No.
Some good stuff from Jungle Dave today at the podium. There's Winnipeg Jets coach Dave Lowry, and let's get Remo back in here. Yeah, he wasn't biting on Mike's theory that maybe you want to jump on Eric Comrie, the hot goalie, in a game like this. Everyone knows that Dave kind of had a shy smile on his face when he talked about the fact that he'd be going back to Connor Hellebuck. And then, of course, not fond memories of the 0-4 final when his Flames were so close to getting their hands on that cup.
Yeah, Mike mentioned that here yesterday about Comrie, and I agree that Comrie has earned, I think, more playing time. I said that before about François. I mean, you look at Comrie's numbers, they're good, but I think this is a Hellebuck game. They got some time off. I think I agree with, he's your number 1 guy. You got to play him, but I mean, against Arizona, that is definitely a Comrie game.
Yeah, and listen, he did do a great job. Now, listen, we are going to get to the Coolbet Lines. Hey, a big shout out to our friends Nick and Nikki DQ. Nick's back in town, cranking out the amazing new burgers at your local Dairy Queen. Pop by and check them out. They are phenomenal. And while you're at it, you might want to try the Red Velvet Cheesecake Blizzard, available at all the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. Pop down and support them. They've been incredible supporters of us. 4 locations in Winnipeg and Southern Manitoba: DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And of course, you can hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba if you've got a big event, a little party coming up. It's always better with the DQ ice cream cake. They'll custom make it for you with whatever you want on it and have it ready for you, quick and easy to pick up at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. Of course, our great friends at Canadian Club, incredible sponsors of ours. I have a feeling a few people might be hoisting a couple tonight for the game. Why not make the best? Canadian Club, Canada's favorite since 1848. And you might still be able to grab some great deals at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Of course, all February long was the display of Canadian Club Original, Canadian Club 100% Rye, Canadian Club 12-year reserve on sale. And of course, they are proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk. And don't forget, we'll have another hoodie to give away coming up on Friday as we finish the week off with a marble race. We will get to the Coolbet Lines in just a second, but Remo, let's quickly remind people that we do have ice tickets to give away for tomorrow's game. We'll also have some more for next week's game, and the place to enter is at winnipegsportstalk.com and just by clicking contest.
Yeah, we're basically going to be giving away a ton of ice tickets as the season goes on. So go to our website, winnipegsportstalk.com, click contest, and there's going to be, we have tickets for Wednesday's game, but after today, we'll have tickets for Saturday's game, and it's just going to continue to roll over. So go in, sign up with the email. You get additional entries if you, join up our newsletter, which I need to start sending more out, but visit on Instagram and referring a friend. So go check out our website, winnipegsportstalk.com, click contest, and enter to win the tickets if you want ice. And look, if you can't go Wednesday, we'll have tickets for a variety of games coming up. So stay tuned and keep listening.
Yeah, you got it. We'll announce a winner. I guess we'll announce it on tomorrow's show. We'll probably try and pick it tonight and make sure we get those tickets out so people can. So check your emails later on if you have entered it. We'll let you know, and Munzie will send the tickets over. 4 tickets for tomorrow's ice game. Go to winnipegsportstalk.com and enter by clicking contest. All right, let's take a look at these games tonight. We got a busy night in the National Hockey League. I will say, Dustin Nielsen and I cranked out another episode of The Lock Shop. We hit the Arnold Palmer Invitational bets, as well as a busy night in the National Hockey League. And we got 9 games on the docket. Remo, my stone cold lock of the century of the week is the Blue Jackets. And I don't know why this number has gone from -139 for Columbus down to -118, but they're getting the Devils. Yeah, they did score 7 goals last night, but they played last night. They traveled. Blue Jackets are sitting there waiting for them. I think there's amazing value, even better now than it was last night. They opened at -139. They're now -118. And I don't mind the puck line either by CBJ to win by 2. That was +165. It's now +200. So 2-1 on that. Take that for what it's worth. Usually when I feel this great about a game, it goes the other way. But I am heavy on the Blue Jackets tonight. Other games, Edmonton in Philly to take on the struggling Flyers. Edmonton a -154 favorite. Tampa -400 at home to Ottawa. The Carolina Hurricanes -192 favorites in Detroit. And this is going to be a heck of a game. Rematch of the game on Saturday where Minnesota got embarrassed by Calgary. They certainly want to pay the Flames back. They're a home dog, +105. Actually do like the Wild tonight in that game against Calgary. You've got the Jets and Habs. And Remo, you talked about this right off the top of the show. The bookies certainly landed big on the Jets right now, -204 against the Habs, despite their 5-game winning streak coming into tonight's game.
That's really surprising that the Jets would be that heavy favorites. And then I saw even Dom from The Athletic, his model had the Jets at 70% chance to win. And now I'm thinking, well, are the Jets not as bad as we think they are? Like, shouldn't they be higher up in the standings? And then I'm starting to think, they've lost how many 9 overtime shootout losses?
3 and 9 in overtime is just a stunning stat. And I mean, even if that was, evened out at 6 and 6,
Yeah.
Then they're 3 points back. Every point's so crucial right now, but they've missed a lot of opportunities, both with some ugly regulation losses. But, you make a great point. Their lack of success in overtime and shootouts, which is really surprising considering the success that they've had in that format in the last few years, is just another reason why it's such a big uphill climb for Winnipeg in this final 30 game.
And that's the thing when you look at, Friday's game where the team looks one way in the first period and you're like, okay, this is the Jets that I know. This is the Jets how I think that they can play. And then they come out in the second and third and, aren't skating and have how many consecutive goals did Colorado? Was it 6 or 7? I'm trying to forget.
It was 6.
Here.
It was 6-3.
It was 6. I wasn't sure if they got the touchdown. It seems like everyone's scoring 7 goals in the
no
NHL
convert.
these days. Boston did last night, but yeah, I mean it's just a tale of two teams. Hassan, we talk about inconsistency for the Jets, and that's why they're out of the playoff spot.
I see Chris back in the chat, riding with me on CBJ. Let's get it. It would be great. As I said on the lock shop, good things happen in threes. So the Blue Jackets can get the money line. Hopefully they can get the puck line. And let's see our guy Laine get 20 tonight and cash those season over bets on the goal total all in one night. That's what I'd love to see. Other games tonight, couple late ones. Islanders at Avalanche. Obviously, Colorado, big favorite at home, -270. And the Bruins, after that big performance last night against the LA Kings, are right back at it. A -175 favorite, playing on the second end of back-to-backs, taking on the Anaheim Ducks. And the Golden Knights, the Knights have been struggling. Kind of weird to see them all of a sudden towards the bottom of the conference playoff positions. They need to get some wins. Laurent Brossoit has been struggling, but Vegas still a -238 favorite against the San Jose Sharks, who are in rebuild mode.
Yeah, Max Pacioretty, he's out. It's going to be Jack Eichel on the top line with Dadonov and Chandler Stevenson. So who do they have out? Pacioretty, Stone out. I mean, they're kind of struggling, but I still believe in Vegas, and here they are, and so do the odds makers. -238 favorites against San Jose. And San Jose is a team to watch. The big name Thomas Hertl, a free agent going into next season, he could be moved at the trade deadline. So
it'd be a big addition for for a top playoff team on a rental basis. Hertl will be a guy I think that could really help a team, and especially we know out in the East, there are so many teams. I mean, I just think of that triangle from the old Southeast Division with the 2 Florida teams in Carolina. And then a number of other teams. The Toronto Maple Leafs have looked great so far this year. We'll see what happens once they get to the first round. They're going to have a real tough one. But anyway, it's going to be a great night tonight in the National Hockey League. But of course, man, we've talked about all the the big stories surrounding tonight's game. For me, the biggest story of tonight's game is going to be that anthem by the Husley Ukrainian men's choir. They have set the bar really on incredible anthem performances in the past, but this one tonight, my friends, is going to be incredibly memorable. I imagine we'll be seeing it everywhere amongst news channels and social media. So make sure you get to the game early tonight and be ready for what will be undoubtedly probably the most powerful rendition of the Canadian anthem, and then, of course, the Ukrainian anthem that we've ever seen in these parts, considering what's happened on the other side of the world.
Yes, well said. So make sure you get there early if you can. Take in the anthem. Should be a memorable one. Also, we haven't even mentioned, it is the Jets and the Habs. I know the Habs having a pretty bad season, but when they play here, it's going to be like half jerseys in red tonight, which is always extremely upsetting.
Do you think that will be the case, or the fact that they've been so brutal this season will keep some people away? I mean, the Habs fans usually like to come out and pump their chest and, talk about how great they are. Somewhat difficult to do that when you're in the race for the first overall draft pick. Although they've won 5 in a row, maybe the Habs fans are feeling pretty good about themselves and will be there tonight.
No, Habs fans are passionate. This is they only come here once a year. This is their chance to support their team. I know there's a lot in Winnipeg, so I'm expecting. I remember, there's guys with painted faces, championship belts. They're loud and obnoxious. These Habs fans. So we actually didn't have too many here. I was having flashbacks to the playoffs last year where they invaded our chat, especially after the Scheifele Scheifele.
Well, just on the chat, and I mean, maybe I'm speaking out of turn. You'd be a better person to discuss this, but I was paying close attention to the chat, considering some of our concerns going into the program, and I think for the most part today, overall, was quite it was quite a good day here in the chat. It was great to see everyone. By the way, hit that thumbs up if you haven't already, and make sure you've hit this red subscribe button if you haven't already, and join us daily. I said to you beforehand that today you might need to be ready for a Royal Rumble-esque performance with plenty of over-the-top rope eliminations, and it didn't seem to go that way. And I'm grateful to our listeners and viewers on YouTube that it didn't go that way.
99% of people in chat are pretty, over 99 are pretty respectful. And to all the other chatters, we're usually staying on track. I usually have to step in once in a while. So I was very nervous going into today's
so
chat.
Nervous.
No, I haven't been this nervous since like the Scheifele Evans. There's like 700 people in here, and half of them are Habs fans screaming about how they want to decapitate Mark Scheifele. But it was pretty good today considering some of the topics. So I want to give a big shout out to everyone. I know I see a lot of the same names here every day. So thank you for being respectful, and I didn't have to go Brock Lesnar and have a record for eliminations.
You didn't. Man, great show today. Big thanks to Moe Khan, one of our favorites. Always love having Mo on the program. And Scott Billeck was awesome today too. Great stuff from Scotty, and make sure to check out what he's got going on both on Twitter at Scott Billeck and of course in the Winnipeg Sun. Remo, what do we got tomorrow? Tomorrow's going to be a great show. I cannot wait. I do believe Hammer's going to join us, and we'll talk about a number of interesting things with Hamilton, including tonight's game. But speaking of the Habs, our good friend Dale Weiss, former Montreal Canadiens, back in the peg. He's going to join us on the show tomorrow, and we'll talk about the walk-off on Sunday from the Manitoba Moose. Jeff Malott going to join us. I mean, certainly we'll touch on the winner and his incredible celebration, but also on a real solid season for him right now with the Manitoba Moose. So Jeff Malott, Jeff Hamilton, and Dale Weiss tomorrow. Going to be a great Wednesday edition of WST tomorrow at 1.
Yeah, Dale Weiss hanging up the skates back in town. He does have that Habs tonight as well, so I'm sure he's dialed in on what's going on there. And yeah, Jeff Malott from the Moose. So a lot of stuff coming up, and we'll of course talk about the game tonight, Jets Habs. I'll be in the building, so will you. So I'll have to bring all my screaming hot takes about the Jets play. Hopefully it's a good game.
Yeah, no doubt. Looking forward to this one tonight. Murat's going to join us on Thursday, as will Andrew Harris. Our first chance to talk to the longtime Bomber great about his move to Toronto. Andrew Harris coming up on Thursday. And Kenny Weeb and Hacksaw. And maybe, just maybe, we did not mention this, Remis, and I don't want to get my hopes up, but there was seemingly progress made between the Major League Baseball Players Association and Major League Baseball. I'll believe it when I see it, but there was a lot of optimism, it seems, amongst people that are following it closely.
So last night, it seemed like they were talking, and I think the owners are like leaking out that they're close when they're really not that
just
close.
Squeezing the players.
They're just trying to get the public to like support the owners. Be like, oh, you greedy players, blah blah blah. But I'm becoming more and more that they don't care about canceling April games. It's sad. So I got optimistic. I sent out my lineup to my fantasy base. Like, okay, guys, seems like it's happening. We're ready to go. And just from what I've seen during this show, it sounds like it is not actually close. And MLB's making their final offer. They're not going to budge from, and the players are going to turn it down.
Let us know when it's done, guys, and we will certainly talk about that and a whole bunch of other big sports stories around the world with our guy, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, on Friday. That's going to do it for us, gang. Enjoy the game tonight. Should be a great one. And as I said, get there early. You are not going to want to miss the anthems. Going to be a very special moment. And hopefully the two teams step up and follow what is going to be an amazing start to the evening with a heck of a hockey game. And of course, bottom line for the Winnipeg Jets, they need 2 points. And if they get it, we'll be talking about a big game against the Dallas Stars on Friday night. Huge thanks to the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen every day. F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course, Coolbet Canada. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock with a huge show. Jeff Malott from the Moose, Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press, and longtime NHLer Dale Weiss. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Enjoy the game tonight, and thanks for being with us and making Winnipeg Sports Talk a part of your day.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.